Okay. Cameron, are you sitting in for Polly, or is she expected as well? Do you know?
Yeah, I'm sitting in for her today or tonight.
Okay, thanks. Okay, good evening, everyone. This is the Hideout Utah Town Council regular meeting, April 13th, 2023. This meeting will be an electronic meeting with no anchor site. Pursuant to my letter of March 16th, I'm calling this meeting to order. And I'm going to take roll. Chris Byer.
Here.
Thank you. Carol Hazelton.
Here.
Sherry Jacobs.
Here.
Thank you. Ralph Severini is expected to join. He's running a bit late because he was on an airplane. So when he joins, we'll acknowledge his presence, but we still have 3 council members, which constitutes a quorum. Bob Nadelberg is in Portugal, flying an airplane. So he won't be here. All right, that's the roll call. Item 3 is the update on Golden Eagle subdivision. We issued a letter within the last week to the Golden Eagle landowners as well as posted publicly. We continue to work diligently with Mustang and to finish up the few items they have to finish up so that we can move forward. That is not yet complete, and we hope to see that finished very soon, but we don't control their schedule. So those of you that are hoping to have this resolved know that we had a case in court a couple months ago now, where the judge confirmed that the things that the town is requesting that they complete are required. Mustang, many of you know, is challenging that. There's going to be another hearing in a couple of weeks, and we don't believe that we'll see anything different, but we'll see what happens. In the meantime, we keep encouraging Mustang to just finish up and get it done so we can move forward. That's all I can really tell you on the update on Golden Eagle. Item 4, public input. So this is to talk about anything that's not on the agenda. So to do that, you raise your hand functionality in Zoom, in the menu bar, which has things like muting and stopping your video and things like that. There's a place for you to raise your hand if you have something you want to share.
Hey, Mayor, it's Ed O'Rourke. I was unable to get in on Zoom, but I thought I would dial in. If I can have the floor for a few minutes, that would be great.
Yeah, you're typically we hold these to just a couple of minutes, so if you can keep it down to a couple, that'd be great. But go ahead.
Well, I've waited a month to say this, so thank you for the couple minutes. I know you've got a busy agenda tonight. A month ago, I sent out to you a list of questions that supported the question I asked at the last council meeting on what is the background, return on investment, business case, call it what you will, what formed the decision to specify a water meter that is 4 times the cost of the existing water meters that seem to apply only to new build residents like myself. So I formulated a letter to you, and I have to express disappointment that I babysat a response to that letter for the full 4 weeks, looking forward to what I think is just basic information. I know I come out of private sector. I think you come out of supply chain too in your prior life. I know in my world, This data just sits in a file. It was information that was used to present to the council, to yourself, to make a decision and vote. So I view this as very suspect, why it would take a month to reply to some very basic questions. You were kind enough 10 days ago to say it's in legal review, which surprised me because this is, again, basic information. Why anything would need to go into legal review is beyond me. But in any event, a few minutes before, half hour before this meeting, I decided I would send it out so the entire council could see the context by which I wrote the letter. I, of course, did not give them enough time to look at it, but you were kind enough to reply that you've got something in your inbox. I know you've been busy. So I just want to say, as a resident, a soon-to-be resident, because I still only have a lot, I'm not able to vote, and I think most people know that if you own a lot in Hideout, you don't have any voting rights until your home is built. So I'm one of those individuals trying desperately to build a home in Hideout. And so I do look forward to this, but I am kind of stunned that it would take 4 weeks to reply to some basic information about why the cost of water meters has quadrupled. So with that said, I look forward to reading your legally approved letter, maybe tomorrow, maybe before the next town council meeting. But I think this is an issue that the entire community deserves transparency to. So I'd like to thank you in advance for providing it, but I am expressing disappointment that it's taken 4 weeks of babysitting to get to something that is yet to be completed. So those are my comments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I will give you just a brief comment, not specific to your questions, but into the time gap. I will take a moment to remind our residents that your elected officials are not remunerated for their efforts. Most of us have work outside of town council activities and don't get to spend as much time as the residents might like in supporting the community. So apologize, but we occasionally have delays in our responses. That's all I want to say tonight. Greg M, whoever that is, your hand is up. So
Hi there. Good evening.
Hi.
I'll try to be fairly quick. I am a Golden Eagle lot owner, not going to ask about Golden Eagle. I understand the position that you're in. My 2 questions for you, or just seeking comment to the extent you can, is really about the town's economics. I'm a financial professional by trade. I've watched your special planning meeting from January 6th at least twice, and I know that there's an item later that's going to talk about the budget. And I'm concerned. You know, this is a town that has had a profit gone from $500,000 in 2022 to a $250,000 deficit, now projected later in this session to double. And I'm kind of concerned because at the time, in the January 6th meeting, Jan McCosh suggested that the legal costs were a notable part of the problem. And here it is again later tonight. And I guess my first question is, at what point is there going to be a public hearing about how much the legal strategy as a percentage of the town revenue is costing, and does it make sense? And are citizens going to be able to talk about it before you have to push a tax increase to balance the budget? And I guess my second point is, you know, between an hour 20 and an hour 40, Ralph Severini made an impassioned speech that was spot on about the need to recognize that this town is in competition versus other people, that the EDC and the Planning Commission need to work together to streamline good events. And especially if the deficit's about to double, At what point, Ralph asked, how far could they push? When could they actually lead and try to streamline stuff? And if the deficit's doubling, I hope it's now, because you have some commercial revenue ideas coming through the pipeline. I watch every one of your meetings. And at times it feels to me like we're dithering on small ball, especially when we're running a deficit. And I'll leave it at that. And thank you for the time and whatever comments you feel like giving.
Okay, thank you, sir. I will make the comment that the council and the mayor took an oath to uphold the law. We have specialists that support the community, that help us interpret and understand the building codes and requirements to operate a municipality in compliance with those laws.
Yeah, hey, I
So
don't want to gainsay.
a lot of those legal costs are driven by development and or residents who don't see it the same way. And
I get it.
I can't. I took an oath, and
Yeah, I get it,
and
sir.
until
I'm not asking
the
you. to
legal
cave
environment
the
tells
issue.
me that we have to do something different. We're going to try and uphold the law.
Yeah, I get it, sir. I'm not asking you to change your legal strategy, though at some point I think there needs to be a public comment. My main concern is, given this climate, you have what I hope are commercial opportunities that can solve your deficit. And
I
I'm
agree.
really
We're
hopeful
working hard.
that's
We're
gonna get
working hard to
streamlined.
make those happen. But we'll talk about those later. But we are working hard
Yep.
to make those happen. There's a lot of people working on that, and
Okay.
I'm the chief cheerleader to get commercial in here and other revenue streams. Believe me,
Thank
I
you.
don't like coming to anyone else. So,
Thank you.
Councilwoman Byer, your hand is raised.
Thank you. Now on to a completely different public input topic. I just want to say, with the sudden and serious warm up and snow melt, there was a lot of running water through the town in the last few days. First of all, I want to shout out to Public Works for keeping their eyes on any potential flooding. Thank you for, driving around 7 days a week to make sure that, there aren't any areas of concern that just suddenly pop up. But I realized yesterday, after having an email exchange with Daniel, that we have sand and sandbags available over at the Public Works building. So wanted to thank the town for that as well. Are we going to post that information on the website, or otherwise alert residents that they have the option to go fill some sandbags, put them in places, key places if needed, to help protect their property from any kind of water that might be going in bad places, as our runoff is undoubtedly going to pick up again as soon as it gets warm.
Chris,
Thanks,
I'll
Chris.
definitely post
Yeah.
that on the website.
Yeah, Alicia, sorry, Alicia.
I said I will definitely post that on the website.
We have sent out a newsletter on that, Chris. I also think it went out on the app. Am I wrong, Alicia? Didn't that go on the app as well?
I don't think it went on the app.
Well, shame on us.
Well, I subscribed to all the notifications and I didn't get any, so that's why I'm bringing it up. I wasn't
Well,
aware.
it certainly went out on a letter from Carol Custerly, because I got it.
The newsletter?
Yeah, she definitely sent something out.
I read the newsletter. I clearly didn't read it closely enough. Probably my problem.
But good. Thank you for bringing it up, Chris, because I didn't realize that it hadn't been also carried over to the other communication forms.
Yeah, so there are
get that
like
taken care of right away.
Yeah, that's great, because there are like minor areas. I rode my bike through town. I looked yesterday to see what was going on. And I was very glad when it got cold again today, even though, like everyone else, I can't wait for, warm weather, but very glad it got cold again, so we get a little bit of a break and we can, further prepare. So I just want to raise awareness of that and thank Public Works.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. We'll get that deficiency adjusted right away.
Thanks.
Right, Alicia?
Absolutely.
Okay. And I don't see anything else for public input. So I'm going to close public input and move to the agenda items. Agenda item 2 and 1 are going to be switched tonight at the request of Councilman Severini, who wanted to particularly hopefully be on for the discussion on ranked choice voting. He's hoping to be off the plane and able to do that by the time we get to that. So we're going to do the report from the Sheriff's Department first. So Sheriff Rigby is on. I want to thank him for being here, and let's Alicia, is there a hard copy for the sheriff's report, or is it just verbal?
I didn't get anything from Sheriff Rigby. Did you send anything over?
Okay. I don't know.
Just-
Let's ask him. Sheriff, you're up.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thanks, Sheriff.
Yeah, so we emailed it over with the invoice. If we need to email it again, happy to do that.
Yeah, I don't get the invoices, so.
Well,
Nice.
you'll need to check with Jan, and I guess that's probably where it went.
I have the invoice.
Okay.
You probably have
I
the
can
report
forward
as well, Jan. If you can. Thank you.
Okay, so council, mayor, it's good to see all of you. Hope you're all doing well. If we can help with the sheriff's office with any emergency management and flooding, then please let us know. We'd be happy to help with all of those things. Okay, so providing a quarterly report of law enforcement services. So in the first quarter of 2023, and the information that we've sent to you, and I'll just summarize it for you. As a reminder, we have an agreement that requires us to do about 12 hours of additional law enforcement services a week. So almost 50 hours a month. And right now we're doing about 17 hours a week and not quite 70 hours a month. Another piece is when it comes to traffic stops. So we've conducted 57 traffic stops in the last 3 months in Hideout. And so that's about 20 a month and about 4 or 5 a week. If you'd like us to be spending our time doing certain things, and we're happy to work with the mayor on doing that. So just let us know. That's the overall summary of kind of the stats go. We've also provided, we have a technology attached to the deputy vehicles that's geofence based. And so when they cross over into the town, then it logs their time there. And so that's how we know how much time that we spend there for you. And we provide that detailed information along with the invoice. And so if you ever have any questions about how we arrived at our total, then please let us know and we can speak to more about that, but we have provided that. Another piece that we've provided to you is what we call a law incident summary with times. And so it's a report that shows the incidents that we've handled in Hideout over the last 3 months. And it's things like citizen assists or impounding a vehicle, parking problems, welfare checks, lost property, property damage, traffic accidents, VIN inspections, and helping people with lockouts. It also has involved in the last 3 months things like improper dumping, serving a couple of warrants, arrest warrants, a case of domestic violence, some alarms for people's property, more parking problems, more citizen assists. We handled a death, which ended up being a natural death, nothing that was suspicious. A couple of traffic hazards, a noise complaint or two, and citizen dispute, and intoxication. And just more of the same as far as what I've already mentioned. In the report, it shows the general area of where those things happened. And so when it has to do with, whether it was on Deer Mountain Boulevard or Shoreline Drive, I can tell you that when it comes to parking problems, some of them were on Deer Mountain Boulevard, Lasso Trail, Whitetail Court. When it comes to the intoxication, that was on Deer Mountain Boulevard. There were a few things like traffic hazards that were on Whitetail Court. Anyway, those are all just generally speaking kinds of things. And we definitely can go into more details if you have questions or in the future on things. But do you have anything right now that I might be able to answer for you?
Thanks for pulling that together, Sheriff. We've got the report now, which I'll share with council. The question I have is: are we seeing trends that the town can do, municipality can contribute to help mitigate going forward? Is there things there is there educational programs that we should be doing? Are there, that kind of stuff? Any thoughts you have
I
that
do.
we can do to?
No, I appreciate the question. So I think there's one or two things. This isn't just in the last 3 months, but prior to that, we're dealing with thefts out of garages. And so individuals that are leaving their garage doors open, especially at night, whether that, is maybe newsletter or social media, but reminders about those kinds of things would be great. The same goes for vehicle burgs. So we regularly get vehicle burglaries in the Hideout area. And so the message is probably something about locking vehicles, not leaving your keys inside vehicles, not leaving vehicles running. In the last 6 months or so, if I remember correctly, we've had a stolen vehicle in Hideout. And that was when someone left a vehicle running. So again, those three things: thefts in garages, vehicle burglaries, and a stolen vehicle, all have to do with thefts. And so closing and locking items is super important. One other piece that's closely related is construction thefts. And so people just watching out, especially when it gets dark, for people that are in construction areas and letting us know. So people are able to call 911 at any point in time. So it doesn't have to be a medical or a traffic accident or some crime that is happening to call 911. At the same time, we want to be careful with that. We've got a non-emergency number. It's 654-1411. And so we love it when people call that number. It goes to the same 911 dispatchers that are answering the 911 calls, but it's a non-emergency number. And we also have text to 911. Now, text to 911 is something that's new, and folks also need to keep in mind that where we're close to Summit County, sometimes the cell towers pick up and take the call to Summit. People don't need to be concerned about that because ultimately we all share the same system and it gets to us. The calls don't get transferred like, oh, you're going to have to call Wasatch. It doesn't work that way. Our dispatchers talk to each other and the call, they stay on the line and our 911 dispatcher gets it. But still, text to 911 is possible. And so it's a relatively new function and people are welcome to let us know what's going on that way.
So there's the number for that text to 911.
Yep, people
you
just
just
need to
text
wherever
911.
they're at, if they'll just go 911 and then put in their
Okay.
message, it goes to the closest 911 center.
Very cool.
Great.
Thanks for that. Thanks for those insights. We'll get the word out certainly about the garages and the cars. You know, it's working at the ski resort. We often find cars running in the parking lots because of those electronic keys, and people throw them in their cup holder and walk away, and the cars run all day. So we need to do some training for folks to remind themselves that it's not, you know, those electronic keys, you need to do a second check just to be sure, because it's just too easy to leave your car running.
Great. We'll watch your social media and whatever you post, we'll repost. So sounds great.
Yeah.
We'll plan on doing another quarterly report. And as always, if the mayor's got questions, then please let us know because we'd like to work together.
Council, any other questions for the sheriff or comments?
No, Mayor, I just want to thank you for asking my questions for me. Thank you, Sheriff Rigby. Always delighted when you come on and talk to us. I'm always fascinated on the report that comes out about the things that happen that, you know, as residents, we're not necessarily aware of. You know, we all live in our little bubbles, I think. And so I think it's really important to continue to reinforce the message of, you know, do common sense things to try to avoid being victimized. Like you mentioned, locking the cars, closing the garage doors, et cetera. And I think if we all continue to practice that, we can make those simple kind of crimes of opportunity minimize here.
Thanks, Councilwoman. Great to hear it. If you ever want any more detail, happy to do that. You know, just kind of providing the surface level stuff for public meeting. But if we ever want to go into more details, happy to do that. And thanks for that.
Thank you.
I've got one other comment, not really a question, but comment is the cost of video doorbells and stuff has come down enough that we may want to encourage those that don't have such devices to consider them. They're pretty useful. They're pretty reliable. They work reasonably well in the dark. And should someone be victimized, having some kind of video evidence certainly could help the sheriff's department help us find those perpetrators and get on with it. So I'm not, you know, I don't know that force people to do that, but it's those home systems now are, you know, a few $100 And it probably worth it because they're going to get a couple $100 out of your garage the first time you leave it open anyway.
They become so helpful, and it's really for the residents, the homeowners that want it, and so that we can help them. It's great.
And Mayor, the only challenge with those, and I know this from experience, is sometimes it's difficult to get them on your network and get them hooked up to your doorbell, et cetera. It's sometimes takes a little tech support to get them working. If you go to, if you go to buy one yourself. So, I don't know. There are probably some residents who are tech savvy, and there are probably some residents who aren't. So, I don't know what we can do about that, but it's not a slam dunk getting a video doorbell. But they are, once they're installed, they generally work well.
Yeah, Chris, and that's we could. Sorry, go ahead, Sharon.
If and when the time comes, we want to be talking about surveillance cameras having to do with common property, city property, and things like that. Love to be part of that discussion. There's certainly some of the vendors that their products work well in our dispatch center and stuff like that. So.
Okay, we can chat with you offline about that. We've got, as you know, we've got some cameras in town already. And we're open to doing more if we can figure out from your deputies where they think the next logical spots are. And the construction guys usually have their own cameras, but we can also
Helps when they
encourage that.
do. It's a big deal.
We can certainly encourage that. And
Thank you.
and Tim, I think you're on. Can you make a note we can talk about that, maybe make that a requirement for job sites going forward?
Yep, we can definitely do that. Absolutely.
Thanks, everyone. It's good to see you.
Thanks, Sharon. Appreciate it. Okay, have a good night. Okay, next up on the agenda, is a discussion around ranked choice voting. I know Ralph has joined the meeting. I see his name up there, so that's great. I think Ralph is in a car, so he's voice only, but that's fine.
No, I joined. I got home early.
Oh, well, good. Congratulations.
Yeah, I
Great.
just figured I wouldn't drive with my, with my earbuds going 65 miles an hour, whatever. I figured this would be safer.
Yeah.
Besides,
Yeah.
the sheriff would have got me on this one.
All right, we do have someone presenting. And I don't know who that is, but is it, I'm sorry, was
Kelly.
was it the mayor? Are you
Kelly,
on?
yes.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Former mayor,
Thank you
I guess
so
I should
much.
say.
Yeah, former mayor. So is it possible to share my PowerPoint, or does that not work because can I share
Sure,
it?
you can. I'll just stop my sharing and you can share.
Okay. I'm gonna share
Just need to
real
hit your
quick.
share screen and go wild.
See if I'm smart enough to do this.
In
Does
the
that
menu
work?
bar,
Can you
there's
see
a
that?
share
I
screen.
know I have to close. Oh, share. Allow
And then
Zoom.
you select the document.
Share. Okay, so I see it on my screen, but I don't know. Oh, wait.
Well,
Okay. I think I'm so sorry. Mostly, I haven't had it work like this. Okay.
But on Zoom, there's a little green bar that says share screen, and then it brings up all your screens, and you click on the screen you want to share.
Okay. Zoom.
So
Let's
there's
see.
a menu bar on Zoom, and it should be a green.
So I already did that, and it
Box.
looks like I can see the document on my screen, but let me go back to the Zoom and see what happened here. Huh. Okay, I'm going to go back and put share screen. Okay, now it's telling me files. Maybe I have to go to files. Oh, shoot. It's on my desktop, but I don't know why it's not.
No, you shouldn't have to go to files. It should open the window that's on your desktop. Should.
just says basic whiteboard. It just shows me some squares. I'm sorry. I guess I don't know what's wrong. Because I do share and then it shows me this little screen. Okay, I'm gonna do share
Is
screen.
the PowerPoint open?
Desktop, yeah. Desktop, share, okay. Allow Zoom to share your screen, yes. Now do you see it?
Give it a second. Once you click on it, it should take a minute to pop up. If not, you can just mail me the document and I'll
Okay.
post it from here. Because it doesn't
Okay.
seem to be responding for some reason.
Okay, all right, well, I'll just, darn. Okay, I'll just go ahead and talk about it and then I can share it with you later, then you guys will have the copy of it. So, okay, so
I can
first of
share
all,
what-
do
I
you want
can
me to?
share this document that you're seeing, if that'll help.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine for right now. And then I'll just use my presentation where I can see it. And that'll be fine. Let me just see if I can. That's so weird. I don't know why it won't let me.
Helene, if you want to
Yeah.
email it to either me or the mayor, then mayor can share it on his screen and control it. Like if you can hurry.
There it goes.
Oh, there we go.
It's there.
Yeah.
You got it.
Okay, here we go. Awesome. Okay. Now let me make it turn into the, oops. Huh. I don't know what. Okay, here we go. All right, ranked choice voting. I'll be quick. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you tonight. I am the executive director of Utah Ranked Choice Voting, which is a nonprofit where we go help educate people in Utah about ranked choice voting. And I was the director of elections for the state of Utah during the Levitt administration. And then I served a term on the Heber City Council and as mayor. So I know a little bit about what you guys go through making all these decisions. And so I will, I want to use your time wisely. If you have questions, please feel free to interrupt me. I'm happy to answer any questions, anything that you've heard about ranked choice voting. I will just kind of give you an overview and then we can just jump into it. So first of all, what even is ranked choice voting? So when you get your ballot, instead of just choosing which candidate you want to vote for, you get to rank them first, second, third. So let's say you have 4 people running for an office, you get to put your preference in the order of preference. And then when it comes time to tally those votes, the first choice votes from all the ballots are counted. If nobody has over 50% or an absolute majority, then you drop the last place candidate and the votes that are their second choice votes are given and retallied to see if there is any candidate who has now reached the 50% threshold. And that continues if it requires a few rounds for one candidate to receive 50% plus 1 of the votes, or 50% if there's multiple candidates. So that's the basics of how it works. I will tell you, there are many different uses of ranked choice voting in this country. So if you think, oh, I don't like what Nebraska, it's an entirely different ranked voting, and it was in partisan elections. As you know, your elections are nonpartisan. It's also not perfect. You can spend a lot of time on any election system and find things that aren't ideal. But what you get to do as a city is look at it and compare it to the existing system and decide if the advantages are there for you. In 2021, there were 23 cities that voted to use ranked choice voting in this pilot project that the legislature authorized. Of those 23, 3 of them did not have enough candidates, so they didn't end up using it, even though they voted for it. So let's talk about the whys. What are the advantages? One of the biggest advantages for small cities like yours is you only have to hold one election in November. Now, I don't know how often you get enough candidates to have a primary, but many cities will have to hold a whole primary to eliminate one candidate who maybe isn't even serious about running. And so the other 2 candidates, everyone knows are the 2 in the lead, and someone throws their name in there and you have to run a primary election. So one of the advantages is it saves you the cost of a primary. I'm not sure how Wasatch County does it, but most county clerks charge $2 to $2.50 per voter. So you end up paying double to have a primary election because you still have to send out all those ballots. It also is advantageous for candidates because you only have to focus on the November election rather than the primary in August and the November election. So it saves some money. All the counties in Utah have the equipment, including Wasatch. Wasatch County ran Heber City's election in 2021. So the county clerk is fully prepared to do that. One of the things that's nice about ranked choice voting is voters, sometimes you're looking at an election and you think, oh, I think it's probably one of those two, but I really want to vote for this third person, but am I wasting my vote? And sometimes there's this strategy about whether I vote for who I want or whether I vote for who I think has a better chance. Well, with ranked choice voting, it doesn't matter because if your first choice is the person who's eliminated, you still get to weigh in on who gets another vote between candidates who are remaining. Again, a majority. In our country right now, with all of the contention and people not trusting elected officials, this requires a coalition where that person has to be able to get 50%, whether they're from first and second choice votes, or even sometimes third and fourth. Long shot candidates can't draw votes away from a candidate who's most preferred because those votes are eliminated, those people are eliminated, and then those votes go to the next one. Counties can perform post-election audits just like any other election to demonstrate voter confidence. Counties can count the votes and produce a cast vote record, then they can tabulate ranked choice voting. I know in Wasatch County last time, the clerk decided to not run the ranked choice voting in Heber until the canvass, but it is entirely possible to do it every couple of days or however often a county clerk would normally show those results. And I guess probably my favorite reason for ranked choice voting is with all the divisiveness and the polarization in our country, it almost trains us to look at elections differently. It trains candidates to say, hey, if you don't support me, or I know you like so-and-so, but would you consider me as your second choice? Candidates have to talk to people they wouldn't normally talk to. It trains us to create coalitions and to look at issues. Voters have to say, gosh, if my friend Tom doesn't win, who's my second choice and why? It just creates a different environment in elections. Amelia Gardner, who was the Utah County Clerk and then now ran for commission, talks about her election with ranked, where the candidates were able to get along. People were very respectful and civil because it wasn't a winner take all, win, lose, scorched earth kind of environment. It was a time where people needed to work together to create coalitions. And I think that's, for me, probably the best thing about it, because that's kind of what we need right now in this country where we can't solve problems because everyone's so polarized. I'll give you a little bit of data
after the just 1 sec.
Oh, you bet.
Sorry, it's the mayor. When you said that the lowest ranked response to those votes get redistributed, are they just redistributed by a ratio, or how are they redistributed?
It's whoever they ranked on their ballot is their second choice. So let's say that the third place candidate had 100 votes and 70% of those people wanted one, they would get those votes, and then 30% would get the other. So it's whoever the people rank on their ballot. So it shows you a little deeper what the voters prefer. So we did a survey after 2021 just to sort of see what the voters, if they liked it or didn't like it. This was people who had voted, but the results hadn't come out yet, so they weren't biased by whether the people they liked won or not. 81% said at least it was somewhat easy to use. 90% said the instructions were clear. Again, this is one of the things that people sometimes will say, oh, it's too confusing. Voters don't know how to do it. But actual Utah voters, 90% said it was very clear, somewhat clear. And that was the first time of trying it. Interestingly, over 62% liked using the ranked choice ballot. We had we had some variety, and in Salt Lake City, there were 29 percentage points more likely to say they liked it than they were in Sandy. But even in Sandy, 51% of the voters said they liked it. And Sandy's sort of become the poster child of a not good experience with ranked choice voting. And I'm happy to explain a little more about that later, but just so you know that even there, more than 50% said they liked it. 60% said they were more likely to vote for the person they wanted to and not have to strategize. Most people who voted ranked choice voting had the same satisfaction level as people who were non-ranked choice voting. We did poll some of both just to kind of see if there was a difference in their experience. 43% of the people said we think people should have a majority of votes through ranked choice voting. And go to the next one. There was a question about how important is it to voters that a candidate does get a majority? Is a plurality enough? And 85% total think it's important that voters get a majority, or that candidates get a majority of votes. 50% think that we should use ranked choice voting for more Utah elections, as opposed to non-ranked choice voting participants. Typically nationwide, once people have used ranked choice voting, the polls are higher that they like it, instead of ones that haven't used it don't rate it as highly as those who have used it. And finally, for right now, the cities who want to use it would have to vote on the resolution, then express their intent to use it to the county clerk and lieutenant governor's office by May the 1st. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Hey, this is Chris Byer. Hello, thank you so much for the presentation. So here in Hideout, you know, we're pretty small. I know I've been in 2 elections so far. We often don't have very many people that want to run. And so let me just say this, we have a mayor every 4 years comes up for re-election along with 2 council members. And then on the other 2 years, we have other council seats that come up. So 3 at a time. How is ranked choice voting going to work in the situation where, you know, you have council members, either 2 or 3 that are on a ballot? Because currently it's pick 2 on some years and it's pick 3 on other years. Can you explain how that works?
Yes. So the way the legislature set it up for Utah is, so let's say you have 3 this year, right? This is a year with 3 council members up for
Next one will be a year for 3, yes.
Okay. So let's say that 6 people are running for those seats. Well, actually you would need 7 people. So you have 7 people running for those seats, and a voter gets to rank their choices and say, well, here's who I want the most. Here's my second person. Here's my third person, et cetera, et cetera. And each round, it's like running a separate election. So all the votes are counted. And if no one gets 50%, you do the ranking until someone does. And then that person wins the first seat. Then you pull the ballots all back together with that person eliminated and all their votes eliminated, and do it again. And then the next person that gets 50% would get the second council seat. So one of the reasons in some states, ranked choice voting, they would do it in a proportional way. Let's say 40% of the people like these council members and 60 like the others. Some states do it that way, but the way Utah does it is if 60% of the people like 3 candidates, those 3 candidates are going to win because they're going to have the most first choice vote and the most votes on each round of voting, if that makes sense. So essentially, it's just exactly what I told you, only you run through it 3 times until you get 3 winners out of all those rankings.
And it would make sense if we had 7 candidates, right? But if we had 6 candidates, or what's the cutoff then? We're at 7. So we'd have to have 7 candidates for ranked choice voting to kick in. Otherwise, it. In other words, we're eliminating the primary that would have eliminated the 1 person if we had 7 candidates.
Exactly.
Okay. The other question I have, and this is, you know, I kind of love the idea of ranked choice voting in partisan elections, but in nonpartisan elections, which is what the municipal elections are here, we're not.
Right.
we're not representing political parties. We're,
Uh-huh.
so, so some of the arguments about civility, I mean, I guess they could apply, but it feels like our civility problems are really more partisan. So that's the kind of the thing. It's like, it feels like the state legislature allowed it only at the municipal level. I guess as an experiment to see how it goes, or because maybe it is a good idea. But can you explain why, or do you have any insight into why the legislature agreed to do this at the municipal level only?
Yeah, I wasn't working with ranked choice voting when this happened, but originally the two sponsors in the legislature were Mark Roberts and Rebecca Chavez Hoke, who were known as the most conservative and the most liberal two legislators at the time. And the political parties had started using it, and they said, hey, let's use it for partisan primary elections. I think there hasn't been an appetite to use it in a general election because there is a perception that it could weaken the parties. And that's why I think they haven't been open to it in a general. But you look at the last governor's race, there were 4 candidates. The governor won with 36%. Blake Moore in the first district won at 30%. Conceivably, we could have 6 candidates running for one of those seats. And in most cases, whoever wins that Republican primary is going to win. So there has been a lot of conversation around it. And then after the Trump election, there was that Stop the Steal movement. And there is a group in this state who, the same people who are against ranked choice voting. And there's been some opposition in the Republican Party. In Alaska, they used the type of ranked choice voting that was a final 4. They had an open primary and then the 4 go to the general, and a Democrat won. For a lot of complicated reasons, including the fact that the Republicans chose a Democrat second instead of their other Republican, but a lot of the Republicans didn't like that. So I think initially when there was a lot of, discussion around it, they said, well, let's just try it this way as a pilot and just see if people like it, see how it goes. Let's do this for, 4 election cycles, gather the data, and then decide if we want to use it in partisan primaries. So that was the discussion at the time. And now there's some politics that have changed, but we're still in the pilot project right now.
All right, thanks. I appreciate that.
And your city's probably more civil. Some cities aren't as civil, and it's not necessarily partisan, but it's more personal attacks. And, they did this and they did that. So yeah, it just depends where you live.
Well, we could be heading in that direction, starting to feel like that.
And you may not. Yeah, you may not have enough candidates to use it, but it is kind of an insurance policy that if you do get one more than you need, it saves you having a whole primary election.
Gotcha. So there's no downside to, like if you do, in our case, we to date have not had enough candidates to have to have a primary, but things could change in the future. And then this, as you're mentioning, could help protect us against some very, a lot of folks wanting to run for certain positions. And it does feel like it would keep it more civil, because I think if any individual starts overly attacking, it could turn off a bunch of voters. It could play to some voters, but it could really play against them. So
yeah. Out of the 23 cities that voted to use it in 21, 3 of them didn't have enough candidates to use it at all. Some had enough candidates in mayoral race, but not council, and vice versa. So there were some small cities like you guys that voted and then didn't end up having enough candidates. But yeah, you never know. One thing that some cities like is instead of filing in June, you file in August. So it shortens that time. So it feels like once you file, you feel like as a candidate, you're like, what should I be doing? I be campaigning. But that does delay that. It gives you a little more time to decide and a little less time for the infighting and campaigning. And, maybe it's just pure discussion of issues in Hideout. There's none of this nonsense, but whatever it is, it makes it shorter.
August sounds better than June to me also, but if I can keep the floor for just a few more moments. what happens? I mean, let's say it is a little more complicated. So what are the situations where people's ballots end up not counting? I mean, let's say we have example, let's say in Hideout, in our, next council election, we have 7 people running. What if somebody doesn't fill out the ballot properly? Like they vote for 1, 2, 3, but they don't vote all 7 or whatever they're supposed to do. What happens to the ballots if they're not filled out properly?
Great question. The only thing that would eliminate the ballot would be if they voted for more than one person in the same ranking. So let's say they put 2 people in for their first choice. That would be an overvote, just like it is in our current ballot. If they decide to say, I'm only going to vote for 2. I don't really care about the rest of these. If my 2 are out, I don't care who wins. Then those 2 votes are counted. And if neither of those people win, then their ballot is exhausted. But this is no different than if you have a race for 3 council members, there's 6 on the ballot, and people say, I know when I was running, people would say, tell them to just vote for you because a vote for someone else helps that other person. In ranked choice voting, it doesn't help the other person because the only way that person's going to get that second or third choice is if the candidate you want first is already out or has already won a seat. So it's just the same thing. If a voter chooses not to finish it, then their ballot is done. They just don't weigh in on the rest of the races. But there's no, those votes always count. If they vote, unless they overvote, their vote will count on whatever races they choose to vote on and whatever rankings.
So I've never seen a ranked choice ballot. So do you put numbers next to names that are on the ballot, or what's it look like?
I should have had a picture of one. There's like the names down the left side, and then across the top, it'll be first, second, third. So if you're first choice, you just put first and mark that name, and then you go to the second and mark that name. And there's instructions in the thing. And then there's also some, things that one of the things we have helped cities do is some practice voting, like the city, like at the farmers market in Heber, the League of Women Voters and the city recorder, which have some ballots there for people to kind of see what it looked like. We put it in city newsletters. And so usually people have seen it before and they understand, oh, okay, whoever my first choice is, I put under column number 1. Whoever my second choice is, I fill in the bubble under column number 2. So that's how it works.
All right, thanks. I'll stop dominating the questions and turn it over to any of my colleagues.
I've got a couple of questions, Colleen. I don't know if anyone else does. Hey, can you hear me?
Ralph, please.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, we can.
Hey,
Go ahead, Ralph.
how are you? Thanks, Colleen. Very nice. I've read some stuff, but you were a lot more informative. So, what is it? So, I feel like there's going to be some churn though. So until you get the you have to go back and get a recast vote from everyone. If until there's kind of a process of elimination error. How long does that take to do typically? I mean, is that you do that the next week, the week after? So if you don't get to the final 2 or 3 that you want to get to, what does that look like?
So everyone's choices are on their original ballot. So you only do it one time. And when the county clerk counts those ballots, so however long it takes to get that first round of counting, like it always would, then you've got what's called a cast vote record that is just run through another software program. Actually, Alicia did this last time, and it takes like 5 more minutes. So it's not a matter of people voting again. They put it all on that one ballot. It's just a matter of running it through the program and counting it again. So it doesn't take any more time. It's essentially a few minutes.
One vote, and it's an algorithm just to run through the second and third, whatever number of folks. So you also kind of answered a question that I had. You said 23 cities and 5 counties in Utah have adopted it. We have 252 towns, which means only 9.1% of our towns have adopted it. And 5 counties, we have 29 counties, so that's only 17%. So it doesn't sound like the adoption rate's that high. And how long you been at this, and why is the adoption rate so low?
So this is the third cycle of doing it. So the first year, none of the county clerks said they would run the election. And I understand that as a county clerk, the last thing you want to do is add one more variable that you might mess up. And so I would think that's a lot of the reason. They did negotiate with them and they finally said that, you know, they were okay with the pilot. But then once they were okay with it, none of them were wanting to run the ranked choice voting election. So Amelia got elected in Utah County and said, I'll run the election. So she ran the election and Payson and Vineyard opted in. And a lot of cities at the time were saying, well, we like it, but we don't want to be a guinea pig. So Payson and Vineyard did it in 2018. And then last year, the Salt Lake County clerk agreed and the Utah County clerk, and then here in Wasatch, Heber did it. But there are still a lot of county clerks who say, I'm not going to run your ranked choice voting election. And cities, I mean, no cities in Utah have the equipment and do their own elections. So there are some cities right now that want to do it. We had 3 in Cache County and their county clerk is resigning and he doesn't want to have one more thing. And so he said he won't do it. So that has been a lot of it, is there's only a handful of county clerks who are willing to do it. And also, you know, yeah, it is a new thing. We're a conservative state. We have more cities doing it in a conservative state than any state in the nation. And so, you know, and as I told you, there is some narrative in the Republican Party about this distrust of elections where one of our council members from Woodland Hills who really liked it and they're voting to do it again this year. They saved $2,500 on a primary election. Their citizens liked it. They thought it was more civil, but she got attacked in a National Republican Women meeting. And they said, Utah gets an F for elections because we have mail-in ballots and ranked choice voting. So philosophically, there are some people on the conservative side of Republicans that don't trust elections and feel like we should have all of our ballots on paper and all of our voting in person. And this is one of the things they don't like. And that has, and there's a lot of kind of loud people that are coming out talking about it. And so some cities are just saying, we don't want to fight it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense. But, you know, do you know what the national adoption rate is on this by any chance?
No, but I could send you an email with it. I think I read. So Alaska, Maine, and Nevada just voted to do it statewide, but it's a constitutional amendment, so they have to have one more vote on it. And then there's a bunch of cities smattered across the country, but I could get you the exact numbers.
Yeah, I'm just curious because it just seems so low, you know, and we have, to Chris's point, we have not a lot of candidates and, you know, so I'm not sure it's workable in a small town like ours. Although I like the idea. I mean, you know, everything you presented makes a lot of sense. I'm just not sure it fits, you know, our situation very well. And I'd like to get some more input from other, you know, from some, you know, a wider range of maybe some small towns that have tried it. I don't like being, I always like not being the guinea pig either, or at least, you know, maybe second, but not first. Anyway, Colleen, really great. I'll turn this over to somebody else at this point. So.
Ralph, can I just comment that if we don't have enough candidates, it doesn't kick in. We just have a normal election.
Exactly.
And
so why do it?
And we still get to file in August instead of June, right?
Yeah, and if you
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, if you said, hey, we're going to do ranked choice voting this year, and then you have your filing in August and you don't have enough candidates, you just default back to the traditional plurality election. There's the way you always have. Now, if you have enough or you just have one extra, then you would still not have to have a primary, but be able to have it all in a November ballot. And that's what a lot of small cities like. It's kind of like an insurance policy, just in case, you know, you have a bunch of people come out, you don't have to worry about it.
Well, that you bring up a good point. Last question, maybe you could fill me in. It doesn't have to be now. But what other towns of our size within the range of where we are have adopted? And what kind of, you know, survey feedback have they given?
I don't know the exact populations, but I think the ones closest to you are Goshen, Genola, and Elkridge in Utah County. Woodland Hills is probably a little bigger. I'm not sure how big they are, but I will send you some names of those cities and people you can talk to. there were 3 in Cache Valley, Nibley, Newton, and River Heights that are also pretty small. And I think that would be the smallest ones in the whole state that did it.
Okay, that's really great.
We're
Thanks,
basic-
Colleen.
We're
Sorry.
basically a class 5 city, Colleen, so any of the
Yeah.
class 5s would be
Yeah.
worth knowing.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll
even
look at
for,
the
something in our range that we could maybe just query a couple of folks in the town.
Yeah, you bet. I'm happy to do that. I'll send you an email with all that.
But our deadline, Ralph, is May 1st, which is days from
Coming
now.
up.
So I think we kind of have to decide tonight, one way or the other, for this cycle.
Yeah. Well, I don't decide that fast without some data, so that's my position. It sounds great, but not enough data for me. Okay, I'll pass this over to anyone else on the council who'd like to ask some questions.
I think getting some more data is great. I think it's some good things to consider. While the mayor's position is not up in this particular cycle, it is up 2 years from now. And I could see, at least based on some of the comments I received, I could see multiple candidates potentially coming forward, which would be great for the town. So
Yeah, especially if
That-
we add more to the town at some point, obviously that's going to be a lot more folks coming in. So I think the dynamics might change at some point.
So I think it's worth considering, how do you want to deal with, again, for not this cycle, but for next cycle, what do you want to do if there's 3 or 4 candidates that raise their hands for mayor? Don't need an answer tonight, but I need you to think about it.
So that's too bad that we are in April and we have to make a decision for May. That's just terrible. I hate to say that, but we got to get ahead of the curve in these kinds of things. So we have enough information before we come into a resolution like this. That's my, anyway, too bad.
Yeah, Ralph,
Well, you
I would
got-
agree. I think we've got an agenda item coming up about meeting
Yep.
materials and agenda being
Yeah.
set in enough advance notice. So had we had this agenda set, and the materials in a week ago, we might have had a little research time. Ralph might have been able to ask those questions and,
Do you have
Had
another
at least-
meeting this month? Is this your last meeting for April?
it is.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yes.
We would have to have a special meeting if we needed to take action outside of tonight in
Yes.
April.
Yeah, the
Well,
legislature.
we have, sorry, go ahead.
I'm
Colleen.
sorry. I was just gonna say the legislature was looking at changing it. So a lot of cities like you, we just had 3 decide yesterday. So there's been a lot of kind of like, are they changing it? And then it's all of a sudden, oh, we only have a month or 2, but you have to decide by May 1st, just so that if you're not, then you can put out the notices for June filing and get ready for a regular cycle. So. But I get it. I get it.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I have a question. I'm just wondering what the downside is to doing it, since it's probably not going to affect us this year anyway.
Yeah, Sherry, I think the same way. I mean, it doesn't feel like there's any downside. Because I would be very surprised if in our upcoming election that ranked choice voting kicked in, given that we have 3 council members seats up. Alicia, correct me if I'm wrong there, but I'm working from memory, but I think so.
Yeah, you're correct.
So, and then 2 years from that election, that'll be when mayor and 2 more council seats are up. So it is possible that by then we could ranked choice voting could kick in, especially for the mayor race. And, with all of these public input we've been getting lately about costs and people are worried about our budget and, it seems like it would definitely help the town save money as well, or the city of 5th class save money when it comes to elections.
Yeah, and I also think it will give more time for us to find other people that might want to be on the council, because June is coming up pretty quick. And I think it's pretty notorious that nobody ever steps forward, but maybe if we have until August, we can get more people that might want to do it.
Yeah, you're right, Sherry. June is really early for a city of our size. August feels much better. And for the same reason you said, I mean, it becomes front of the mind that an election is coming up in
Right.
August. In June, people are thinking about summer vacation or whatever they're doing in June. And
Yeah,
it's
so
very
I
hard
just-
to, yeah.
I think if I just don't understand if there's no downside, why we have to put it off.
Well, it's
We
on
don't,
the
we don't,
agenda.
we can make a
for-
motion, Sherry, at any point
Yes.
and see if we have a
I was
second.
gonna
and
say,
we
it's
can
on the
vote.
agenda to see if there's council members that want to make a motion, and then it would go to vote, and the way it works is, takes a simple majority to pass.
Okay, well, Carol, what do you think? I don't know. if she's-
I tend to think that I would like to wait a little bit. I don't think I'm ready to really vote for it right now.
Carol, I just want to say, if we made a motion to adopt this and it was seconded, we would have to vote. One way or another, vote yay or nay.
Right. No, I understand that. I'm
Okay.
just saying I'm not going to vote to adopt it. I want,
You're not going to make a motion and you're not going to second that motion, is what you're saying. And then you would vote one way. You would vote against it if it came up, is what you're trying to say. Okay.
Right.
So it sounds like we probably wouldn't have anything pass anyway, so.
No, wait, hold on.
Well,
It'd be
no,
it'd be 2-2,
I'm-
and then the mayor's the tiebreaker. So we could bring this to vote.
Well, I'm sort of the opinion that we need to start getting things done in town, so I will make a motion to pass ranked choice voting.
Can we look at the, I'm sorry,
Yeah, Colleen, can you stop sharing? Can you stop sharing your screen, Colleen?
Oh, yes, sorry. Thank you.
can we look at the,
I'm working on it, Chris.
oh, thanks. That's the resolution. Okay, so it requires a resolution to pass.
There's a series of whereases, and then basically we adopt. Therefore, is if it were to pass, the Hideout Council adopts ranked choice voting for 2023 municipal election, and by this resolution gives notice to the Lieutenant Governor to enter the municipal alternate voting methods pilot project for its 2023 municipal election. So that's what you're.
Hey, Colleen,
motion.
now I have a question, another question that just came to mind.
Uh-huh.
So, have you guys studied how ranked choice voting influences fundraising that candidates have to do? I mean, have you looked at that at all? And as far as the money that gets spent campaigning, is there any analysis there?
Not in Utah that I'm aware of. There was a study by the Sutherland Institute, but I don't think anyone has looked into campaign finance as part of looking at ranked choice voting that I'm aware of.
I mean, that feels like an important consideration. I mean, do we find that kind of there's less, I guess, special interest money or whatever you want to call it, going to specific candidates, or maybe they spread it around differently, or, you know what I mean? When it comes to.
Yeah, great question. I just think it's so new in the pilot. I think after this year and maybe after the next cycle, all this stuff is gonna, they'll take a deep dive, but it's just been so new that there hasn't been every kind of research done yet.
Okay, and then a question for Cameron. I see in the first whereas that, well, first of all, it says January 1st, 2019. What is that? Oh, okay. through January 1st, 2026. So if Hideout were to adopt this resolution to participate in the pilot project, can we adopt a resolution to leave the pilot project at any point, or are we locked in for the pilot duration?
Yeah,
You're only choosing it for one cycle.
yeah.
Oh, so we would have to do this each election cycle, opt in to the
Under
pilot?
under the current law.
That's correct.
So we're going to consider this again in 2 years.
Yes. If the legislature doesn't make the changes, yes.
Doesn't make what changes?
The legislature is reviewing the whole thing and thinking about whether or not it's meaningful, I think. Isn't that right, Colleen?
Uh-huh. Yep. Yeah, I think I'm hoping, and what there were some legislators this year that tried to change it, and none of those bills passed. So I'm assuming it'll stay the same through 2025. And then maybe they'll say, okay, this is a permanent thing. If cities want to do it, they can just vote to do it. But I'm sure even if they did, you could always vote to get out of it. It would never be like you were bound, that you couldn't change it. But yeah, but as of right now, they made it so that you had to opt in every year during the pilot.
So if we were to opt in, we would very likely just be a statistic. We wouldn't get a chance to exercise it unless we had 7 candidates for our council
Seven
seats.
people coming for council, yeah.
Right, so that's why I'm suggesting we do it this year to give more time to get candidates, because it's unlikely that it's even really going to apply to us, but it would allow us more time for filing. I mean, for candidates
For this cycle, it would buy us time for
this
filing,
cycle, and then we can
which is important.
decide next year, 2 years to do it or not.
Ralph, does that help you at all? I know you really need time.
Yeah, it doesn't, Chris and Sherry, and here's why. I mean, the way this, so we've only had we've only had the pros here. Tell me some, are there any cons to this? Because I don't feel we've had, a fair, review of, if only 9% of the towns in Utah have adopted or in the pilot, or, that means, 91% are not. So I'd like to hear some nots, even though I may not agree with them. I don't know what the nots are about, or the cons. And that's the piece. This resolution also, which I'm looking at, is one-sided. It's like, it's basically saying, 23, but municipalities in that whereas, but it doesn't say that there's 252 municipalities in total. So the input here that we have is skewed to 9% of the towns. So to me, that's not enough input to tell me that there's good and bad about this.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I haven't explored this enough. I mean, I've read, I was reading some other materials on it. I just haven't explored enough that I feel comfortable. And that's why I was thinking, well, we can roll this over, to the next. And that's why I kind of like got a little bit miffed about why wasn't this on, in January or something, not in April. It's ridiculous. So that's the downside. And I don't like voting for things that I just don't have enough data on, where there isn't a fair review of things. That's just the way I operate.
I'm gonna totally agree with Ralph, and the fact that, as far as I'm concerned, I first heard about this last night when we got our agenda. And we have had less than 24 hours to look at it. And I just feel we need more information. I feel like it's being shoved down our throats. I'm sorry, but that's my feeling.
Yeah, Ralph and Carol, would a week or two and more information in that amount of time help? Like if we were to try to come back before the end of the month and either vote yay or nay on this thing. Would that be helpful, or are you?
Christie, since it's a non-starter anyway, why are we going to have I wouldn't want to have a special meeting for this. I mean, to me, if this is not going to really impact anything going into this next election anyway, most likely, why are we making this such a, pressing issue when we haven't had time to do any additional research? And to be honest with you, Colleen, I mean, you did a great job, but if for anyone, looking at this, you got to look at the pros and cons. You probably should have brought a con person in here and said, okay, had a little bit, I would have appreciated a bit of a debate with both sides presenting their arguments and both sides presenting their statistics. And that, both at the Utah level, the national level, and saying, this is what's going on. These are the wider surveys. And I don't feel like I have that information. Good or bad. I mean, I might love this. I just don't feel like I have the information. And to Carol's point, like, we got this yesterday without, it's like something like this, I would have wanted a 5-page document, attached to it.
So let me just apologize. I go to a lot of cities and there's a group that typically is on the agenda and they must have not reached out to you. So that's what often happens. There's a group called Election Integrity who goes to a lot of these cities as well. But I wasn't aware of that. But again, I'm happy to give you all the negatives, everything that people talk about, give you some websites that you can look at. Happy to do that.
Yeah, it's almost like we should have a couple of people on
I
our
didn't know what your
council.
background was. Yeah, I didn't know what the background was because sometimes we go to cities and they've already, they've had a lot of background and most of them have heard about it for a longer time. So anyway, I'm happy to point you in those directions if you would like.
I've heard about it, Colleen, but I haven't fleshed it out. So,
Fair,
that's
yeah.
the piece. And I always try to look at both sides of the issue on things like this. And while again, it sounds something we could do, maybe should do, but without the counter elements of data and someone else presenting the cons, then I don't really don't feel comfortable. That's all. Just don't feel comfortable in my skin saying yes yet.
Fair. And what I will do as part of that email I send you, there is a study by the Sutherland Institute that looked at it. There's a couple things out there. Again, it's very new in Utah. And because we do it differently, sometimes it's not relevant to see what some other state did because the way that we do it, they call it the Utah way. So there's just, it's still a new thing. It's a pilot, but I'm happy to, send you any of that. And
yeah,
one thing that would be useful is what is the Utah way?
The Utah
In other words, sorry,
way
why are we different than everybody else? We'll need some explanation on that as well.
Well, there's a lot of different ways of using it. It's not like everyone's the same. It's just that in Utah, how I explained to you how instead of saying, gosh, 60% of the people like this group of candidates and 40 like the other, so they should at least have one vote. It's not like that. It ends up being almost 100% of the time the same outcomes as we would have had before, because of the way that you take the first person and then you drop them out instead of saying, well, that person got this percent, they should get that percent of the seats. You know what I mean? Like if there's 3 seats, so that some states will do a proportional thing, but ours is just instant runoff. You drop the lowest and their second choice votes apply. And probably the number one criticism is that people say it's too confusing. It's too hard for voters. That is the number one criticism.
Yeah.
But the data
that makes sense.
we found,
I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah. But
but we did it. I didn't mention that it was a Y2 analytics study. I mean, that was a Y2 analytics study, not Utah ranked choice voting. That's 90% of them said it wasn't that hard to figure out. But anyway, yeah, that is probably the number one thing that I've heard people criticize about it.
Colleen, I just want to say one last thing. This is our fault for not getting ahead of the curve. So I'm not putting this on you at all. We're just not ahead of the curve on some things. So that's our fault.
You got a lot to worry about. I know this isn't the only thing on your plate,
Yeah.
so I totally get.
So I'd like to, we're an hour and a half into the meeting and we're on item 2. So I'd like to suggest that we either have a motion or decide not to make a motion and make a decision and,
Well, I asked the council members if
Move
they'd
on.
be willing to come back together in April to revisit this. I heard from Ralph. Ralph said no, he doesn't want to have a special meeting just for this. You know, we would need 3 council members for that special meeting, and I just like to hear from Carol if she would be interested in that. Is that something that you would consider is coming back into a special meeting to cover this one item?
I'm going to say no, because at the end of the month, I'm going out of town. So it would just be so soon that I'd have to be able to do it. And I don't even know, I've got a really busy week next week. So, and then I'm going out of town.
I'm trying to give you guys as many outs as I can and be as respectful as possible. So I hope you understand that. Okay. So I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the resolution requesting inclusion of Hideout Utah in the municipal alternate voting methods pilot project.
I will second that.
all in favor, I'm sorry, not in favor, sorry, it's polling, not all in favor, sorry. Ralph,
And no,
How do you
because
vote?
of all the reasons I already gave.
Carol,
No,
Chris,
Yes,
Sherry.
Yes,
Well, I'm going to vote no. Not because I don't love it. I really do love this. I think it's fantastic. I think it's the way we need to go. But I'm also going to support the fact that I'm not happy about how long it's taken us to get the information out for us to have these kinds of discussions. And we need to do better, and we're going to bring it up again. But I'm not going to make it for this round. I'm sorry. I do hope that it's still available and we can consider it robustly for the upcoming election in 2025 or 4 for 25, I guess. Because I think it's right. I think it's better than the mess we've got today in the world. I wish it was higher up in the process than just the municipal elections, because they typically don't change a lot in as far as the big time stuff goes. So anyway, okay, sorry. Well, I voted no. I need to write that down. And
Colleen,
we'll move on.
I would just say before you leave, provide us more information, please, you know, and fair, as much fair information, both sides. So you did a great job, and I agree. I'm kind of on the same mind as, well, you know, where we are at this point. Too bad.
Thank you.
I may be kicking myself if we get 7 people, but
Yeah, I know. I feel the same way, but whatever, you know.
well, 7 people in June, it feels impossible. Remember last time? You know,
Yeah,
I'll
an
be
hour
thrilled if
before
we
the
get 3.
deadline, you know, we didn't have
Well,
enough people.
yeah.
So, yeah,
I hope we get 3, to be honest.
exactly. I hope we get 3 also.
All right, thank you again, Colleen. Appreciate it. Our apologies for not being in front of this earlier. Should have been.
No worries. All right, good luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 3 is a presentation of the audit. Unfortunately, the timing of that presentation coincides with the fact that taxes are due on Monday. And besides being our auditor, Ben is a CPA and doing tax work for lots of people and businesses, and is up half the night anyway trying to finish up tax returns. So we will move this item to May. And Jan, we need to be conscious of this next year. We need to try and, if we're done by March, we need to get it in the March session, or we'll have to just target
Okay.
May. All right, item 4. We had a resignation in the planning commission, which resulted in pulling the second alternate, or the remaining alternate that we had into the primary, one of the primary members of the planning commission. So Tony's been doing a great job and reaching out to people, and has recommended a couple candidates to me, who I reviewed and support, and bringing to you the potential appointments of Peter Ginsburg and Joel Piper as alternate members of the Hideout Planning Commission. Now, this is not a resolution. This is just advice and consent. We did provide content on both Peter's background, who has a great background in real estate capital, which will be useful for the Planning Commission for sure, and a bunch of other things as well. And then Joel, who I've known for quite some time, is a longer term Hideout resident. Joel's on the phone tonight. I don't know if Peter is, but he's on the meeting, so they're available to ask questions. But I am recommending that we would that you would support my recommendation for these guys to move into Planning Commission alternates. But if you got questions for Joel, he's here. Questions for me about these people, I'm here.
I have a question for Joel. This is Chris. I just want to know, what did Tony say to you to, or the mayor say to you to convince you to join the Planning Commission as an alternate?
Didn't really say much. Just asked me if I would be interested, and certainly interested in helping out the community, helping the city of Hideout responsibly develop, and I guess take some of the burden off Tony.
He must have plowed you with some drinks, Joe. I don't know. Was that like over an evening barbecue over?
I don't think Joel needs to answer that, Ralph. I don't think it would be
what kind of
appropriate.
drinks. It could have been, Coke or something.
Honestly, he just asked me if I would be interested, and they needed some volunteers too.
Hey, thanks for stepping up, man. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I
No
just
problem.
want to say, I've known Joel. He's done so much volunteer work, with our old Trails Committee, and I'm just delighted that that you're, stepping into this role. I think you're going to do a great job, and thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
I haven't met Peter, but his bio resume also looks terrific. Joel, I know you obviously live in town. Does Peter live in town as well?
Yes.
Good. So.
A newer resident, but yes.
Cool. Perfect.
Yeah, so I'm
um,
delighted we have people, Mayor. So I'm happy to see these folks move forward.
So the way this works is, I need the consent of council to finalize the appointment. So I'm just going to poll everyone to get that done. So Chris, I heard a yes.
I
Right.
say yes. Yes.
Okay. Ralph,
Yes.
thank you. Sherry,
Yes, I'm the one that gave you Peter's number, so I'm glad that worked out.
Thank you, Sherry.
I wasn't gonna put you on the spot, Sherry. We already.
No, I think he's going to be great. I don't know Joel, but I'm sure he will be too.
Carol,
Totally approve.
thank you. All right, Joel and Peter, you guys are in. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, the next item is similar in nature. We had a meeting not too long ago where we appointed an administrative law judge. And that law judge was Craig Hall. Craig has some personal medical issues that are making him unavailable for the short term anyway. And so we identified Tracy Cowdell as an alternate for him. And so I'm looking to ask you for your consent to appoint both Craig and Tracy as the ALJs for the town. Jan, are you on? Yeah, you want to talk a little bit about Tracy?
We did an RFP for an ALJ a while back, and we had some excellent candidates, and both of these gentlemen were candidates. We selected Craig Hall at the time, but fortunately we haven't had a lot of work for ALJs. And then we went back and pulled from our recent or our former RFP when we had this urgent need, because Craig is apparently hospitalized. So I called on references and everyone had great things to say about him. And he's got a lot of good experience. So he comes highly recommended.
So
Just a question, is one of, I'm sorry, is one of our ALJs primary and then the other one is secondary, or how does it work between Craig and Tracy generally? Let's say they're both available. How does that work?
You know, I think we could look at their resumes and depending on the issue, utilize the one with the best background for the issue. I don't think we have to put them in order.
let's
Is
ask
that the way it's
Cameron.
normally done, Jim?
Let's ask
Pardon me?
Cameron.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask Cameron for some input.
Yeah, I think Jan's correct. You can select either or both as their schedule is available, as their experience is relevant, any number. Like, for example, right now, where Mr. Hall's unavailable, we could just move to whoever else we have. And so I think it opens the flexibility for the town.
Thanks, Cameron.
Is there a retainer that the town is responsible for this to, kick off, Mayor?
There's not a retainer under this contract. It's an hourly rate.
Uh-huh. Okay. Just an appointment. When it kicks in, Jan?
Yes.
Thanks.
So if you will, it's an on-demand service.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very
Other
glad that
que-
we have an ALJ to handle, these disputes, if that's the right term for them. So I'm glad we've gone down that avenue. So this looks good to me.
So again, as we just did for item 4, I'm just going to poll you for your support for allowing me to move ahead with the additional appointment of the additional ALJ and Tracy Cowdell, as well as keeping Craig on the list.
Is that a resolution we're voting on?
No, it's just
Advice and consent? Okay.
Just advice and consent. Chris?
Yes.
Thank you. Ralph?
Yes.
Thank you. Sherry?
Yes.
Thank you. Carol?
Yes.
Okay. Item 6, budget impacts for 2024. So the budget team's been working hard on the budget, trying to get a sense of what's going to happen and, versus where we are in the 22-23 budget year. And identify three major buckets. We're going to look at the budget in detail in May, but I want to give you a heads up. Katie's on as well if you've got questions that I can't answer, but three major general fund increase cost items are being proposed. One is in the staffing, salaries, and benefits area. In addition to a cost of living adjustment, we've got one new public works headcount. We were short-staffed, particularly this winter, with snow removal and all that required, volunteer snowplow drivers, including myself. So it'd be nice to have that. And Dan, who I really want to be spending some time at a higher level. No disrespect to the drivers, but I need him working on administrative stuff and getting policies and procedures and things in place. And he was, spending nights driving a truck. So we got one new public works. We've got one part-timer that we're going to move to full-time to help with the financial transactions. And we're adding, or at least we're proposing to add additional benefits to help attract and retain. Council needs to know that we have been aggressively pursuing resources for the town for months and months and months. And what we hear is, sounds interesting, but do you have family medical coverage? Do you have disability insurance? And we have our own staffers asking about family medical count and as far as retention. So we're proposing bringing in family medical coverage and disability insurance in the budget. So you'll see some numbers for that, but that's going to be one of the drivers that's bringing cost up. Second, which was referred to earlier in the public input section, we are incurring significant legal costs due to lawsuits from developers and residents over differences in the interpretation around building codes, contract language, et cetera. That's all part of the great healthy public process that we have in this country. And we are going to continue to present to the community our best understanding of the law as it is, and they have the perfect right to push back. And so I don't see that going away in the short term. I think we'll resolve some of the current issues, but others will arise. As we get more people into town, they're going to have different perspectives. We may see more of it. So I think we have to budget at the level we've been incurring and not at a reduced level. So that's going to come through. And then road repairs are going to have a bump versus our typical, because this winter has been brutal. Many of you live on streets that have seen the results of that brutality. We got to do some road work. It's not just crack seal this year. We got holes and divots and some streets that curb work and backfill and a lot of stuff in there. So that's going to hit that. Again, we'll see numbers for that. But as listed in the headline, somewhere it's going to push us in the 300,000 to 500 range if we don't do something from an income standpoint. So we got to think about that. I'm just teeing it up for you to think about. We get the preliminary budget next month, and then we have some time, and then the final budget is approved in I think is it June, July. I'm not sure. And if we're doing a tax increase, it gets moved based on truth and taxation hearings and so forth. On the enterprise fund, we are going to increase spend. We do have funds there to do this, but we're going to start doing some work on the deficiencies, one of which I'm going to talk about a little bit later on this evening. We've got a couple of major sewer projects identified. We've got a series of water projects and storm drain work to do. We won't solve all the problems in 1 year. So you'll see a capital plan as part of the budget process coming forward that'll reflect what's needed. So we're looking at probably somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million, per year going forward for the next few years to get all the issues cleaned up. And then the other thing we're spending money on is replacing old water meters with the smart meters to improve our water conservation capabilities. We just had a leak resulting in a bill of $16,000 for one HOA. That if we had the smart meters in place, we would have been notified earlier. Because our current meters, the old meters require a drive-by reading, which is done on a monthly basis. The smart meters will talk to you the day they start to see a variation in what they've been programmed for. So, so we could have caught that quite a bit earlier if we had those in. So we're going to keep pushing the smart meters into the community so that we, help minimize the wasted water that happens from. Most of these come from irrigation lines. And after this winter, with the temperatures we've had and so forth, I imagine we're going to find more in the spring as irrigation lines get turned on. So those are the big chunks of money that you'll see that sort of stand out when you look at the budget. Again, which is, we're just finalizing the package for you. We will definitely have it to you, Katie. We'll definitely have it to the council at least 10 business days prior to the council meeting in May, so that they have a chance to look at it and at least get their questions together.
No problem.
I think that's only fair.
Completely agree. We'll be reviewing it with the budget committee in detail next week. We'll meet with you again next week, and by the end of that week or the following week, we'll be ready to send it out.
Okay, thank you.
Are we
I
going
don't
to
have any
talk
more
about?
detail than this. Yeah, we can talk about this, Ralph, but I don't have any more detail at this point than just
Okay.
these sort of highlighted items. Give
No,
you some things to think.
I wasn't sure if we're going to drill into this a bit or not.
This is what I got. Okay. The dollar numbers are coming, but these are in their first run of the budget. These are the big buckets that are showing up as deltas versus budget for the current year.
Yeah.
The rest are, more minor escalation based.
Yeah, well, it's a big. That's a. Katie, I didn't realize you think we're running at a 300 to 500 deficit at this point.
Yes, for this fiscal year, yes, we will be at a deficit.
Yeah, that's like 20%.
Not this size for the. Sorry, when you say this fiscal year, Katie, for the 22-23 year, we will not be at the 300 to 500 level.
We should be close to it. Yes, we will be.
That isn't what I saw. That isn't what I saw when we read it, when we looked at it the other day. So I must have read it wrong.
Okay, we are at a deficit for this year, and we will. But we knew we were going to be at a deficit, so we had planned to bring stuff in, dollars in from the capital fund for this year. So we have not brought those funds in that we had budgeted, which will help by a couple $100,000.
Yeah, so Katie, I know we've gone through this a number of times. So this looks like to me, because we're running about $2 million rough, give or take 10, 15% here, or whatever that might be. We're at 300 to 500 is 15 to 20% a deficit. So that's substantial. Do we have any ways to make up for that? That's the kind of discussion I'd want to get into. Maybe this isn't the right time. We should do that separately, but any thought to just besides tax, what a tax increase would be, pure and simple, and what other sources of revenue, creative revenue that we can come up with, to balance things or get close to balancing.
Right, and we are coming up with some ideas. investing some of our funds in CDs to get a much higher interest rate than we're getting now, increasing some of the fee schedules, looking at the water table rates, looking at some transportation taxes. But yes, we are definitely looking into ways that we might be able to make money. And Ralph, as you know, we're also trying to figure out ways to bring more commercial in here to be able to drive up some of our sales tax revenue and potentially some of our nightly rental transient tax income. So as we start looking into some of those, and I know it's on the docket for the Planning Commission and others, there is some potential opportunity. So what I'd like to be able to do over the next 2 weeks is to give an opportunity and risk schedule to the mayor to be able to say, here's where I think we've got some opportunity. Here's to the magnitude of that opportunity if we do, pull the trigger and do some of those things. And then here's some additional risk. Some of the dollars that the mayor was talking about that we have to invest, I'm hoping to be able to have a lot of that capitalizable. So it is a cash outlay. And in the enterprise fund, we do have some cash. The general fund, we don't, but we should be able to invest in our town, be able to capitalize that and depreciate it over the period of 7 years to 30 years. So I think those type of things will help, and it's getting creative on those things. So I'm hoping to be able to give some opportunity and risk to the mayor to be able to determine which ones we move forward with and which ones we don't.
Well, thanks, Katie. And always great job. Is there anything you can, well, I probably can talk to you offline at some point, maybe share some things that are going through, your mind at this point. Maybe there's
that
some
would be great.
other creative things that we could do here.
Yeah, and I think Ralph, I'll definitely bounce it off for you. Probably the end of next week or early the following week. I'll bounce some of the ideas off of you, give you the high level assumptions that we've used for the budget, where we're short for this year and why we're short for this year, that type of thing. So I will give you some high level into that. I will give you the detail of the plan. You can look at it, and any questions you have, definitely feel free. I'll schedule some time with you the week after next.
Sounds good. Yeah. I've been doing a bit of travel, but I'll certainly try to make time for this because be good to know what worst case scenario is, best case scenario,
Yep, exactly.
So, but anyway, budget time is coming. And we're going to go through this multiple times, but I want to keep you focused on that. Again, we're going to do a better job in getting you the content up front so that you have some time to look at it and ask questions. And appreciate the work that Katie and the team are doing, and be ready. It's coming. Item 7 is around one of those sewer projects that is in the budget for this year. It is enterprise fund money, not general fund money. We had put, sorry, let me go back to that first. We had put $250,000 in the budget for this project for this year. This is a project that is replacing the lift station. It's down below Shoreline 1 in my subdivision, down at the bottom of the hill there. You can, those that may have noticed it, it has little lights on it at night. But that's our sewer lift station. It was built 10 years ago for the town. It is not able to handle the capacity that comes with the new subdivisions in Golden Eagle, sorry, in the Shoreline and the Deer projects, Lakeview and the Deer projects. Those projects had funded their own lift stations, and so we were getting up to having a number of lift stations, 3 and potentially 4 lift stations to try and manage and maintain. When we talked to the developers there, they were willing to pool their funds to allow us to build one very well-designed lift station for the town, and they agreed that they would provide their budgeted funds for that. And then what the town was asked to pay for is the fact that we're upsizing the line size versus what they would have done for each of these individuals lift stations. So we're creating capacity, not just to cover what's coming in, but also some growth. So we're going up to 6-inch pipe. And that's really what we're paying for, is the installation of 6-inch pipe. We currently have a 4-inch line running from our current lift station to the JSSD station, and we're going to keep that line. So we're going to have a redundant line. So that's going to, in addition to the upgrade that we're bringing and the new design of the lift station, which is, right now our pumps are and equipment is all what's called wet pumps. So every time you have to work on them, you have to shut the station down, pull the pumps out, wash the waste off before you can start to do work. The new designs are keep that separate so that you can work on the pumps and the motors without having to get into the actual sewage area. If there's mechanical issues with those, a lot of good technology in there. It's designed by JSSD standards. Our current one is not. Has better monitoring, etc. So we're getting something we desperately need. And the reason I'm coming to you is because I need an extra $50,000 to finish the job. So we did get some estimates, and these estimates are for the entire project, not the hideout portion. So I just wanted to get a reference to make sure that what we're getting with Sunrock and through the GCD and Holmes folks was in the realm of reason from a project estimate standpoint, so that we're not being asked to pay $300,000 for a project that only cost $300,000, for example. So we did validate. Tim and Tio did work for us and confirm that what they're charging us, or what the estimate is in the realm of reason. The time to do this is now, when they're going to dig the trenches and put the pipes in anyway. So we're recommending that you authorize me to enter into a construction contract with Sunrock for this project. And again, the money is it. We do have the money in the enterprise fund, and this will not exhaust the enterprise fund.
So Mayor, so you had 5. So it looks like the primary bid that's coming in at the low is 542 or 543, I think. I think you just move the dial on that here. We got 250 in the enterprise fund.
Yeah, we have 250, well more than 250 in the enterprise fund, but we had 250 in the 2022-23 budget for this. So the reason I'm coming to you, because when it's in the budget and it comes in at the budget level, when you approve the budget, you approve the 250 spend. But because this exceeds it, and it exceeds it by more than the amount that I'm authorized to allow the variation, I'm coming to you to support me in the variation for the extra 50,000.
I mean, obviously we have to do, we have to move on this as well, kind of given the conditions. And so I just was, just on the numbers though, again, there's the difference between the 300 and the 542. Is that going to be picked off from the or dealt with from the enterprise fund over time? How does that work?
No, that's paid for by the the developers. That's their portion.
Okay, good. Okay, that's
They're
so
basically
above.
they're basically building the lift station building and all the equipment in it.
Okay.
We're just being asked to pay for the new piping that we're putting in.
And so our cap is like, what you're saying is 300. We originally budgeted
Yeah,
for
so,
the 250.
yeah, so
It's
we're,
already in there. It's already in the enterprise fund. And they're,
Yes.
and the developers are going to pick up the other 242.
yes, exactly.
Okay.
And so basically, the way this is written, should be written. So we're, authorized to execute agreement with Sonar to install a lift station on the line in the shoreline. It's saying shoreline subdivision because that's where the lift station is, but it's going all the way up the dirt road that parallels the state park and ties into the JSSD lift station, which is on the other side of Deer Springs. So it's a long haul. It's it's a mile and a half of pipe or something. And it's pressurized line, but the hideout portion would not exceed $300,000.
Mayor, how many pumps are in the new proposed lift station?
I think it's at least two. So there's always a backup, and then there's a diesel generator as well, and so forth. I think is it two, Tim? I think we have 3 pump bays, of which 2 are
Three.
online and 1 is a spare.
That's correct. Yep, Mayor, that's correct. What you just said.
Okay, that was just out of curiosity.
Yeah, so we're building one that can withstand an outage, and it can also withstand if we have a pipe issue, pressurized line issue up to the JSD line, because we're keeping the old line. We can shuttle material through the old line until we repair the new line.
Can the new lift station operate on 1 pump temporarily, or does it need 2 pumps to operate?
Yeah, great question.
It's a volume.
Yeah, so
Go ahead, Tim.
it can operate on 1, but it'll be at a reduced flow. So that's why we definitely have 2, so it can push the flow where we need it to go.
Is it also
So
going to be located? Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Chris. It's just to highlight that before you jump next question. It's a volume thing. So what we would do if we were down to 1, we would put a notice out to the community to please think before. Don't keep running your water while you're brushing your teeth and doing your dishes for the period of time we need for repair. Just reduce the flow through the sewer line. Help us manage that. That's all.
Hey, Tim.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask
Sorry,
you. Chris, do you have finished?
No, go ahead, Ralph. Go ahead. I'll collect my thoughts again. Go ahead.
Yeah, this so tell us a little bit about what or can you? Does this extend the workable life of the first station?
Yeah.
Kind of what we're talking about now. So and what is the average lifetime of these of the lift station? So so we're basically cantilevering 2 stations that will give an additional bit of lifetime. So can you give any color to that, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and Mayor's right. It's a volume thing, and so the less volume you can have, for our smaller station, the better. It extends the life of that station. So this will definitely be a plus for the system, for the town, and will help reduce the maintenance costs hopefully in the future. Lift stations, it's kind of hard to say. There's a bunch of variable items that come into play in regards to damaging pumps. I mean, that's what it comes down to. The station itself isn't the issue, where you have you have your building and you have your electrical and you have your pumps. I'm sorry, your pits and stuff. What it really kind of is the problem is your pumps. And so sometimes you have pump failures, things like that. And so it's just part of the whole basis of some last 25 years, to be quite honest. So it just depends on kind of the flow, how well it's maintained, and making sure our residents aren't flushing things down their toilet. They shouldn't be flushing down their toilet because again that leads to some problems, obviously, clogging of the pumps, breaking the impellers, things like that. So it's important that, people, do what they're supposed to do with their toilets and pouring things down their drains to not damage the lift stations.
I would say,
Yeah.
Ralph, I mean, the overall infrastructure has got, the pipes and the building and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we're looking, 15 to 20 years. So, and then the kind of repairs we're dealing with are, the electronics and the mechanical pumps stuff. And that's, a much smaller portion of this spend. But, those have to be done and maintained. But we're adding capacity. One of the projects that we'll be bringing for next year is to separate. Right now, the uphill side of town, the downhill side of town, all run through the lift station. Our goal is to separate the uphill side of town from the downhill side of town by tying directly into the JSSD line that runs on 248. That'll take some demand off the system and help spread the load. And so, as a part of our vision in that whole study that that TO did for us that we approved some months back, that's part of the same intent. So we're building with these corrections, a significant reduction in risk for the town and significant upgrade in capability for the infrastructure moving the waste. So I think ideally, if everything goes as planned, we won't be talking about waste systems for quite some time.
That's a good thing, because I wouldn't want to rebuild the hydraulics on one of those things. So,
Well,
but yeah, if we can preserve this for a while, that would be great.
a question about accessibility and the location of the new lift station. Is it in the same location as the old one, or where is it?
No, it's being built on the bottom of Shoreline Phase 2. If you walk along the perimeter road to the state park, you run out of road and you have to hang, depending which way you're going. But if you're coming from the Deer Springs side, walking towards Deer Lakeview and Shoreline 2, the road takes a sharp left. If the fence, comes on the fence line, then you got to take a left, then jogs right again to get to the old lift station. Where that road takes a left, that's where the new one's going in. It's accessible from the service road / new trail there. So that'll, it can be accessed without tearing up roads. It'll tear up a trail, but it can be done in a way that we shouldn't have major impacts to traffic if we have to get to the buried lines. We're ensuring that we've got, the road to it will be cleared in the winter, so we've got access. Right now, we it's hard to get to the existing one in the winter.
Yep.
It's
That's
in the
definitely
future when
Yeah.
when that's all finished and paved out down there, we'll be in a much better shape to get to the current station through as you come down through Shoreline and hang that right onto that road.
Great, thank you.
All right, so again, I am looking for council approval to authorize the mayor, me, to execute the agreement to install a new sewer lift station in the Shoreline subdivision in the amount for Hideout not to exceed $300,000. 50,000 delta versus the current budget. So I'm going to poll the council. Ralph?
Yes. We've been talking about this for a while, Phil, so yeah.
Yes.
I guess get it moving.
Sherry?
Yes.
Thank you. Carol?
Yes.
Thank you. Chris?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. We're making good progress here. Appreciate that. Tim, let's get her going, man.
Yes, thank you for that, Council. Very important. And we'll get the ball rolling, Mayor.
All right, item 8 is the one we talked about a couple of months ago. What we've done is when we approved the ordinance on the changing on the weed control, we made some vocal changes at the meeting, which we recorded differently between a few of us. So there was a little lack of clarity as to which language we said yes to. So instead of assuming, we Cameron and Carol worked on this and cleaned it up. And I will highlight, or I guess, Cameron, can you do that? We can highlight the changes versus the last version, or just Carol's, I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess
yeah. So if you scroll up to the top, it really only changed, sorry, right there.
Right there.
So if you look on the 5.04.110 stands for weed control, that first sentence, the way it's displayed right now is how the ordinance was drafted. When we codified it, it took bullet point A and put it after the first sentence. So that first paragraph was 2 sentences. So I'm just moving that last sentence into bullet point A where it was supposed to go. And then the very last 2 bullet points, we just added the word non-noxious weeds, because our intent was to still regulate weed control, but we can give exceptions for the non-noxious weeds, and that's what the paragraphs H and I rather do. And so we've just added the non-noxious so that all weeds should still be maintained less than 6 inches. We can give exemptions for areas for a fire break or for areas that don't propose a nuisance or fire hazard. And the reason that these were left out is because we had a couple of drafts that were circulating among staff, and this last little bit didn't get into the last version that was published to the council.
So basically, we're saying, even if they're not noxious weeds, if they're a risk, then we would be requesting that they go as well.
Correct.
At least that's the way I'm reading it.
Correct. So we want residents to control all of the noxious weeds regardless of their height, and then we want the residents to control the rest of the weeds to an area that's 6 inches or lower in the areas that are necessary. And then obviously the non-noxious weeds, the natural vegetation, we want those to be allowed to return to the natural state to the extent possible if it's not required for a fire break or something like that.
So Cameron, does the weed enforcement officer determine if a plant is a weed, a non-noxious weed?
No, good question. The state actually publishes a list, and the county either mirrors that or also publishes their own list. And so what the ordinance does is it refers to the state statute and the county on the noxious weeds. And so they define those. We just are adopting their definitions for the code.
Now, I know about the noxious weeds. What about the non-noxious weeds?
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood. So if the property owner wants an exemption, they'll ask the enforcement officer. I mean, it'll be Carol or somebody else in staff, but they'll ask them for an exemption. And so then we'll have to go out and inspect and determine if that really applies and if it's safe to give the exception.
I'm just wondering what our list of non-noxious weeds are. I mean, some people think plants are plants and other people think plants are weeds. We could get into a dispute about whether something is a weed or not a weed. When in the non-noxious category. And I just don't know. It's not black and white like it is with the noxious weeds.
Yeah, so we define noxious weeds as anything defined by the state or county. And so non-noxious weeds would be, I guess, any plant that's not on that list. We could certainly clarify that. I think that's a good point. There could be some disputes about that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's difference between a weed, which is typically defined as, you know, not needing deep roots and some other things, versus a plant, a flowering plant. So I think, I mean, if we're going to use the word non-noxious weeds, I think we have to have a definition of what a non-noxious weed is. So we don't, it's not a tulip.
Right. Maybe we have to come back to that, you know, with another pass at this. I mean, I don't want to hold this up, speak about non-noxious weeds. I'm just pointing out what feels like an enforcement weakness for us. But I know I like the changes, Cameron. I do. The other thing is the exemption that can be granted by the enforcement officer for non-noxious weeds if it's impractical, or what are the words, to you know, remediate all of them, then there just has to be fire break.
I mean, for example, Chris, I'm being asked to remove the weeds on my lot in Golden Eagle, which I can't get to. And so what do I do? And, you know, there is a road in there. Is that a satisfactory fire break at the moment, since there's no homes up there, you know, et cetera, et cetera? What's the right way? We ask those landowners up there to do their lots. You know, that's got to typically, those are the kinds of things I think that really applies to.
Okay, yeah, no, that's helpful. And they're non-noxious. I mean, you're still responsible, even in Golden Eagle, to get rid of your noxious weeds that are on your property.
I am. Yeah, but I mean, exactly, which is hard enough to do, let alone.
It would be very hard. Yes.
Going after the other stuff. So.
Okay, now I understand why that section H was added. That's very helpful.
So even though they might be above 6 inches, because there's nothing going on the property, it becomes a challenge to get in there and do that work.
Yep, I understood.
The non-noxious ones. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, and I'm not looking for perfection in this. You know, we're just looking for better and better as we go.
Yeah.
Right? Because getting weeds under control is such an important thing. It's a war we'll never really win, but we can certainly win a whole bunch of battles.
Keep it at a manageable level would be great.
Right, exactly.
Other questions on the changes versus what we had approved before for Cameron?
Just, I'm sorry, I had one other question and I don't remember what section it's in, but if a property owner does their weed eradication or remediation and gets their form in May 15th or later, whatever the date will end up being for us. If there's subsequent growth of weeds, because weeds don't take a holiday, right? They do keep going all season. And are you supposed to file more than another report during the growing season? What's that all about?
So only one report is required.
Okay.
That is really to save time and expense of the cost for staff to go and inspect every property. And so if we receive a report from a property owner, then after that, the property owner is still responsible to control those weeds if they come back after treatment. Excuse me, but staff would only be, re-inspecting if a problem is reported to us or if we see a problem or something like that. We're just really trying to take the proactive approach and get everyone to inspect and treat so that we don't have the ongoing problems. But if there are problems, you know, we can go and inspect and require the homeowner to retreat or you know, remove them again, and that'll just be on a case-by-case basis.
But D,
This
Mayor, if
section
you go
here-
up one
this
more, no,
section,
it's the next
Chris.
one. Okay, no, it was actually the next, it's in D, and it's the second part of that sentence.
Yeah, it's in D and E.
So it says in D, noxious weeds will continue to emerge during the growing season. Noxious weeds that continue to emerge during the growing season must be treated or removed as described in the section above. And treatment/removal reported to the enforcement officer. So I read that as being, you know, you had to file more than one report during the growing season. But you're telling me, Cameron, that wasn't the intent.
So it really is only if they observe other problems. So we wanted one report to begin with, but we wanted the responsibility to maintain with the property owner. And so if they, you know, if they find more and they have it treated, we under the ordinance are asking them to notify that as well. But they don't have to continually re-inspect and report unless they find a problem.
Okay. Oh, and one last question. If the town, you know, has to treat a piece of property, sends a bill to the owner refuses to pay, is the only recourse we have suing them, or are we able to take those fees, you know, that remediation money and apply, you know, get it applied to their tax bill so that they would owe it, you know, and within 4 or 5 years, whatever they would have to pay that tax bill, otherwise risk that tax foreclosure. In other words, it's a very powerful tool to put that on their tax bill. So are we doing that?
That's where it goes. Yep.
Yeah, so there's 3 options. The first one is the town staff would just contact the property owner and say, hey, we've had to abate the nuisance because we didn't get your form, or there continues to be a problem. We would just try and work it out that way. And that's been very successful last year when we did that. The second method we could use is just to send that bill to collections, to, you know, a collection company or a law firm that does collections. And then the third one is to either file an action in court to collect, or to file it on the state tax property records as a tax lien. And so that is a pretty powerful tool, because
It's very powerful. Yes.
Ultimately the property owner has to pay it. Well, they have to dispute it, you know, within a certain amount of time that it's filed. I don't know for sure if we've actually had to resort to that yet. I'm not aware of any. I think from last year we actually had property owners that said, hey, thank you for taking care of that for me, because we were out of town for an extended period of time and we appreciate it, and they've paid it. So I think generally it's worked just to have staff contact the property owner.
I want to make sure we have that last and final worst case ability to put the charges as a tax lien, because you know, it is a really powerful last resort
Chris,
for a really bad offender.
we put that in place in 2021 in our Tough on Weeds program. And we also enacted a bond for developers on weeds. So yes, we put that in place.
Okay, thanks, Jen. I mean, I just hope it doesn't ever come to that, but should it?
It's my understanding we only had one problem last year and we couldn't find the owner of the property. So it's been pretty effective so far.
Terrific. Yeah, and ultimately, we just want people to help us get weeds under control. That's really what we want. We're not trying to overly burden people or penalize them. We just need everyone's help to participate, be good citizens. All right, I think it looks good. I don't have any more questions. Thanks for entertaining all of my questions.
I was just gonna say, it got a lot of, it's gotten the attention from what I can see of a lot of people. So, just having it on our website and things like that, I'd say that's really good. So, Chris, do you have any reservations about additional wording here?
I don't have any reservations. I think it's good that it calls out that, HOA common area is responsibility of the HOA, because I think there was a lot of confusion. Maybe it was a couple of years ago when we first started trying to get this going, where folks didn't understand if it was their job or the HOA's job, so I think that's an important addition. And no, I don't have any wording changes, Ralph.
Well, if there are no other questions for Cameron on that, then I'd like to ask for a motion to adopt an ordinance amending Title V, Chapter 4, Section 110, Standards for Weed Control, to adopt these technical changes.
So moved.
Thank you, Chris.
I'll second.
Anyone want to second? Thank you, Carol. Sherry?
Yes.
Support, yes. Ralph?
Yes.
Thank you. Carol
Yes.
and Chris.
Yes.
Thank you. And we have one more. Which is also one we passed some time ago. And it never got codified. And when we switched over, this is back in 2/18/06. So this is early on in my first round at this shot. So we did this and then never got it codified. And we've been trying to enforce it and still doing still doing a not so great job. So we're going to try one more time by getting it into the code. It didn't quite make it into the final code. So so I want to bring this back, and I've instructed Alicia and the staff on multiple occasions that if we don't do it, it's not going on the agenda. And if it's not done and there's nothing on the agenda, we'll cancel the meeting. But we'll have a meeting, have public input, and then we'll cancel, then we'll go home, kind of thing. So yeah, we'll look at minutes and get public input, and then we'll go home. And at some point, we'll have a 17-hour meeting because they got their stuff in. But
Mayor, I remember this from 2018. So can you scroll down to the actual details? Okay, so what are the deadlines in here? And by the way, we should all put this in a frame, frame it, put it up on our desk.
it's not you guys, it's the staff I have to encourage to find a way to do this.
Well, I just want to say, I think the staff is really trying to be accommodating, which I do appreciate. I mean, but we do have to draw a line in the sand, and the only way we're going to make change is by taking a hard line and just, these are the rules. Let's stick to them.
So if any citizen or member of the governing body desires to have an item placed on the agenda for the regular meeting of the governing body, a description of the agenda item must be given to the town clerk no later than 5 p.m. on the Monday, 10 days or more prior to the regularly scheduled meeting. Okay, so it's not the Monday of the meeting, it's the Monday before that, if that helps you think of it that way. And they must provide supporting content for that agenda item no later than midday on the Thursday or a week before the scheduled meeting. Right, which gives the clerk doesn't say when the clerk has to get all that, does it?
It doesn't say when the clerk has to have it all pulled together and
Packaged to
issued.
you, right, yeah.
It doesn't say that.
So,
Yeah.
It doesn't.
No.
So.
But that's okay for now, right? This will be a great
Yeah.
step in the right direction.
I'm sure that if Alicia could have it on the Thursday prior to the meeting, we'll have it no later than the Monday of the week of the meeting. So at least you'll have a few days to try and get through it. Alicia, do you want to step in here before I commit you to something I'm all wet on?
No, I fully support this. And if I
Okay.
get things on Thursday, you will have them on Thursday. So
Well, it
Alright.
doesn't say here, Alicia, what your turnaround time is. It just says agenda items that come from citizen or a member of the governing body. So that includes the mayor, right? Member of the governing body.
Mhm.
So the agenda essentially gets fixed 10 days before the meeting.
Exactly. Yep.
We could call, if we needed something more urgent quickly, we could have a special meeting, right?
Yeah.
If something comes up at the last moment, really, really important, then
Or
it would
if
have
it's,
to be a
if it's
special.
an emergency situation, I believe the mayor has the right to, in an emergency situation, as long as it meets the legal notice requirements for the state to add an item. So if we were to have some event that required us to take a look at something more quickly, then, we still can do that. Particularly if it affects health, safety of the community. So.
And this, if I remember correctly, I think I was on the planning board at that time. We were looking at this also for everything that went through the planning commission
Yes.
as well. Yeah, because there were, the same thing applies to, our friends Joel and Peter, and everyone, and everyone else over there. And I remember we looked at the fine tuning of this wording. So we're just going to codify this tonight, but just a thought, Alicia, if I could interject here. One, first of all, I think you've done a great job, and we've done a great job on tracking action items. But, I think the case in point tonight was we didn't see something big on the horizon. Can we have, I don't want to give you any more work because you probably have enough. But is there a way to kind of map the big issues that we need to attack? I know like budget is by law, we have to be talking about it this month, enacting it in June. And if there's, any tax changes, I think it comes up again in August. But the point, so those are big things. Can we kind of like have a map of those and so we know what the big things are coming, and things like a vote for ranked choice voting or whatever, we can put that in and make sure it's not the last, month beforehand, something where we do proactive project, and treat it, so I don't know, just food for thought. So we all have a view into what our future looks like here.
Let me try and rephrase what I think I heard. Sorry, Alicia. I think what I'm hearing is there are things that come up annually, like the weeds, like the budget, like the fire safety stuff for the summer, et cetera, that we can put on a calendar and say, in May we're going to talk about fire issues, or June, whatever it is, in et cetera, et cetera. I think we could probably do that because we need to. And Alicia, I'm all wet, but I think we can put together the things that are, we have every January, we have to vote on the schedule for the council meetings, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
Maybe we
So
could,
maybe we could
and put it online.
put the annual-
as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
so everybody can see it and see what we're trying to accomplish, and maybe, gives them a heads up a month, more than a month in advance, because it's hard, reading things at the last moment is just too difficult.
I agree. No, I can put together some sort of calendar of what I know is coming up, that we would probably be discussing. That would be good. One thing that I wanted to ask council, and I think I've asked this before, I typically start sending a draft agenda around about 3 weeks prior to the council meeting. Do you guys want to be included on that or no? Because is it too confusing to say, oh, 2 weeks ago, this was on the agenda and now it's not, and now this one is, and now it's not? I mean, how do you guys prefer to have that happen?
I'd rather have the information, and I see Chris nodding. It's like, just, at least the high level bullets, like that first section of where we're aiming for in that meeting earlier, and where we're probably going to need, we might then come back and say, so if I knew about this earlier, like, the ranked choice voting, I might have said, hey, that sounds terrific. Let's have a couple of people give their points of view and debate it out and give them, 1 hour and that's it. And then we vote on it or something, or we come back. And that's the view I don't see in going forward, So if we could do a better job at that, I think that it would help everybody all of us, plus, anybody who wants to participate in the meeting from the town.
I would like to call attention to the fact that we have the budget being presented 1 month earlier than is required. And that's with the good help of Katie. And she's done an excellent job. And I think with all of the budget issues that we have and the financial issues, it's great that we're starting the conversation a month earlier.
Agreed. Yeah, that's never too early on that one, especially if you're running in deficits,
I think it's a good point, Ralph. I'll work with Alicia. We'll put some thoughts together on sort of a calendar-based issue, and then we can also work with the planning commission. And we're gonna have an update coming up. We added, if you remember, we've added to the agenda. We have reviews from the various committees. So the planning commission will be telling us what's on their agenda, which is a heads up for what could be coming our way from the planning side. So let's remember that as well.
Yeah, we got, lots of big things potentially around, like things around annexation that may come up as well. So we want to give that enough time, but enough heads up for us to look at some of that material, I think.
Okay. So, if it's, sorry, Cameron just sent me a note I want to look at.
Yeah, and sorry, I just wanted to do that before I forgot.
Go ahead, Cameron, go ahead. Mention what you just texted me.
Yeah, so I just, Polly and I put together a summary on emergency declarations. And so I just wanted to forward that to the mayor and staff and council, just so that you're aware of what your options are. We've had a couple of those happen in Salt Lake County. And so we just thought it would be helpful for everyone to understand when and where and what you can do. So I'll forward that on after the meeting.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I've been watching the news. I mean, all this flooding, I'm sure that some of those emergency declarations made.
Yeah, mudslides and
mudslide, exactly. There was just the mudslide debris on Farley's Canyon, stuff is happening all around us. So yes, thank you, Cameron. I think we need that.
Okay, if we're okay here, I'd like to ask for a motion to readopt an ordinance, ordinance 2018-6, so that we can get it codified.
So moved. Oh, sorry, Carol moved. I'll second.
Okay, Sherry?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry. Ralph?
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
and Carol. I'm
Yes.
Sorry, and yeah, Carol, yeah. Okay. So that brings us to the end of the agenda items. We do have committee updates tonight from some of the committees. Design review does not have an update tonight, in that they've had no new work to be asked on, and they haven't had a meeting since the last time, so they're not present tonight. But we do have, we do have Jonathan Gunn on here tonight representing the Planning Commission. So I'll start with Jonathan.
All right. Well, thank you and good evening. To my knowledge, there are 5 separate matters that'll be up at the next meeting. The first is a discussion and potential recommendation to the council regarding an overlay zone for the Deer Springs cottages that would permit nightly rentals within that subdivision. That's the first item. Number 2 would be potentially making a recommendation to the council on a final subdivision approval of the cottages, again, in total. Number 3 refers to the Bloom project, which some people might also know it as the Saltzman property. They're going to be presenting a revised concept plan based upon feedback provided at the last Planning Commission meeting. The 4th item is that the town project, which involves the town center, will be presenting a general concept plan for their project. And lastly, I anticipate that the Planning Commission will review a concept plan for what's called Hideout Point, which would be located near the Ross Creek entrance of the Jordanelle State Park.
Thank you, Jonathan. If you have any questions of what those projects are and you can't get your head around them, this is the time to ask them. Hideout Point is the work we're trying to figure out how we want to use that land at the Ross Creek area. We've got a team working on that, have a proposal. The Bloom project, Salzman project, was the old Boulders project, which is now that project went through and the developers have moved on. There are new buyers that are presenting their potential concepts for that property. And then the town piece. Jan, what is the town piece?
It's neighborhood commercial surrounding Ross Creek entrance, and it's, we have a variety of issues on that, creative options.
How is that different than Hideout Point?
Hideout Point is Ty Frisbee's project.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Okay. So the town project is the one I defined incorrectly. The Town Point project is the one I defined incorrectly. So Ty Frisbee is a landowner who owns several acres at the bottom of the Deer Springs horseshoe. I'm calling that shape A shape or horseshoe shape. He owns a chunk of land there at the bottom that isn't inside Deer Springs. Okay, so that's what that is.
We would also have to annex that, right, Mayor?
No, that's already in.
That's annexed.
There's another piece. Yeah, the piece that creates the horseshoe is not in.
Right.
But Frisbee's piece is in. It's just not in Deer Springs.
Okay.
He's independent of Deer Springs.
Gotcha.
He's not the same landowner.
Hey, Jan, I wasn't able to attend the last EDC meeting. Does any of that need to be coordinated between, the pieces that we were looking at and talking about currently and the Ty Frisbee piece?
Yes, it does. There are some issues there, and Thomas and I have discussed those. We can talk about them at the next EDC meeting.
Okay, good. Because I know I saw some email to that effect. I just wasn't sure where the crisscross was occurring.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Jonathan. There's no other questions. Thanks for hanging in there. I know you've been on for a bit, and I know you've got company, but thanks for doing it.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it. As I mentioned, there's nothing from the DRC, and Thomas is not on tonight. Chris, anything on post team?
Yep, the post committee met on March 14th. And I want to thank Kathleen Hopkins for issuing outstanding notes, which I'm reading from right now. We spent the meeting reviewing and prioritizing a project list. So we have some short-term, some midterm and long-term projects that we identified. I'll just give you the short-term now, the long-term, the midterm and long-term, we'll just skip over for the moment. But short-term, there's a trail network in the Claim subdivision that needs to be designed. So we're trying to position ourselves so that once the snow melts, we can get over there and begin that work. The second one is we have some, many of our ambitions and intentions really rely on UDOT and developing that relationship with UDOT. So we need to get a UDOT contact. We have some plans for that new Ross Creek entrance. I believe the UDOT intent is to realign the roadways, but we don't have any information there. We also have the town signage project that was left over from when Jerry Dwinell was here that the committee is taking on. And then there's our spine trail project, which is the vision of having a paved trail. We'll call it a bike trail, but it really is any kind of transportation that is separate and off of 248, but in some way parallels it. And so that's the second item, the UDOT broader issues that we need to get some traction on quickly. Third is Jordanelle State Park, discussing with the park manager, Jason Whitaker, what kind of possible local resident Jordanelle State Park passes we could negotiate, the cost, how we might budget for that, et cetera. So we also, that's for me to work on. And we also want to just continue talking about the Keatley Farm signs that are temporarily installed there, but finding a permanent ADA compliant location for those, perhaps in the new pavilion area that hasn't been built yet. So that's number 3. And the fourth short-term project is connecting Hideout neighborhoods to each other via trails. So updating the master plan that currently exists and making sure that we're pursuing the developers for the promised trails and amenities in each subdivision. So those are the short term. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Couple things. One, on the state park stuff, it would be helpful if we could at least agree on if there is a future entrance between Hideout and the state park system, that we can agree on what the Hideout pieces are.
Yes.
I want to get those clarified and surveyed so we can make sure that land is turned over. Because we don't own that land at the moment, but we would need to make that happen. The developers have been more than willing to work with us. We just have to get that defined and nailed down.
Right. Yes.
At some point. So that's one ask I have. And the other is that Tim has been pursuing UDOT and has contacts. So I'd like you to make sure you connect with him so we don't come to UDOT through multiple people and get them confused. And if, in case, maybe you're already working with them, but if you're not, please do, just so that we don't, it may be a different department that you need to talk to, et cetera, but at least you need to know that Tim's been trying to get feedback from those guys on that intersection and has had conversations with them. So he has a name there.
That's great. Okay, Jan, you made note of that, or you're aware of that?
Yeah, I talked to the same person that Tim talked to,
Oh, good.
so there is continuity there.
Okay, good. We'll talk about that in our committee meeting next week then, Jan. Thank you.
Okay.
But thanks, Mayor. Anything else you wanted to add?
Not me.
Okay.
Other
Anybody?
than wear your muck boots if you go up to claim
Well,
anytime soon.
it's going to be a while before we get up there, and we just want to be able to work on the trail design, and part of trail design is actually walking on the property, and seeing where it's feasible or where you would want to run a trail and capitalize on some kind of a feature that might be up there. So it doesn't involve field work, and we can't get up there for quite some time, unfortunately. Any other any questions from the council? All right, our next meeting is next Tuesday. So we're going to cover, go through these action items on the short term, and then we'll probably touch on the mid and long term projects, just to see if we can, if we have to refine them at all, since our last meeting.
Chris, I do have a question just about access to the perimeter trail and the road. I mean, I know it's been delayed. It looks like it's been plowed again. Any idea when we can start utilizing some of those trails?
When we talked to the park manager, I think he threw out June as a possibility, but it's all going to depend on how quickly they can get that entrance reopened, because it's currently blocked off and dug up, and
right.
I don't think we're going to be able to access those trails until they get that entrance, opened up to the public again.
And is that also including the realignment of the road?
No, that's a UDOT
No.
thing. So that's a totally separate. And when I mean realignment, it's the where the Ross Creek entrance is, and then where the Deer Mountain entrance is. They're pretty far apart. It's a big jog. I believe that's the intent, right, Mayor? That at some point in the future,
Yeah.
that's going to be realigned, so that a traffic light could go in.
Yeah, the intention was that they would move the current entrance north towards Park City to be closer to that intersection. Their code does not allow more than a 15% angle in a cross intersection. Otherwise, they're considered separate intersections. So it moves up towards the JSSD lift station, and there's and it's been considered in the design of Deer Springs. They've known about it, and the space is there to do it if UDOT ever decides to do it. Tim has reached out to them and said, look, we're gonna start building here. So if we need to know if you want this to happen or not. The feedback we've gotten is whatever's in the corridor agreement is your best bet, because that's what's been signed and that's what they agreed to. So it's not done by survey, but it at least gives us a good idea where they're intending to come in. So we could hopefully use that to think about what we lay out for our town space.
And
Well,
Mayor,
it was
it
was on the plans that, that we had for Deer Springs that Nate's presented us a number of times. Yeah, they've got the dotted, the dashed lines there. Is there any idea of the time frame here, or what the motivation will be to get UDOT to move this along? Because I think it's going to be important safety proposition for the town.
Well, that's the challenge, Ralph. I mean, we're threatening to build over the current entrance. That doesn't, there's because they've said they've agreed to it in their corridor agreement. So I don't, we're going to have to get some legal advice on how do we encourage them to let us make that happen once we're ready to make that happen. I don't know. They may say, we're not budgeted for it. It's not going to happen for 10 years, and you're just going to have to live with it and build around us and move buildings 10 years from now. I don't know.
Yeah.
Cameron, maybe you can make a note of that. We can talk about it offline with you and Polly in our weekly call, but yeah, the only thing we have is, their agreement in a corridor agreement that we can have an entrance there, but I don't know how we do it.
Is it useful to have someone from UDOT attend a future meeting? Because I know we've had UDOT here before. Or is you think that is that going to move the ball?
I
when we
think
get into-
when we have our concept and we're ready to take it public, we'll take it to them and say, here's where we're planning to build buildings. How do we do this in a way that, gets you guys to do your part of the puzzle? Or
Yeah.
allows us to do our part to make that happen, or whatever it is. I mean, because they already know what we're asking. I mean, coming to a meeting and tell them the same thing Tim and Jan have told them, which is we want to do something here. So,
Well,
I
it
think we
impacts it does impact, the economic development of that area. So it's not just Deer
it
Springs.
absolutely does. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the
Yeah.
concern. That's my thought into this is it's not just, the Deer Springs property, but now it could impact where we design or where a business developer might be thinking about what their impact is going to be going forward on that as well.
Yeah. So the instruction, for lack of better terminology, guidance I've provided the team is assume that the entrance will move and think about how you best want to use that space. Once we have a concept plan, we would take that to UDOT and say, okay, based on the corridor agreement, the assumption that it's going to move, we're looking to start moving this project forward. So that's going to cause us to have to move the entrance. Are you okay with it? Us moving the entrance? And they may not like the intersection, but they might be okay with us moving the entrance first and coming back and lighting it in the future, like they did it at Jordan Parkway in Browns Canyon. I mean, those intersections were there long before they put the light in, but the new one, up towards Park City, which is just moved the traffic jam from the high school closer to us. But anyway.
Yeah, Ralph,
so
yeah,
I think-
UDOT, we need to have an open dialogue with UDOT about a lot of things, like with the Parks Open Space Trails Committee, we want to go over, under, across 248, to connect, as the mayor calls it, uphill hideout and downhill hideout.
Yeah.
We've got all
And
these
we've got-
ambitions and we can't do any of this without working with UDOT.
Yeah, and that's also in the corridor agreement. So again, I'm gonna, as I said, I'll get Cameron and Polly to help me review that and find out what kind of power we have with that as far as implementing the things that they signed off on. And, I don't know if we have any or not, but we'll at least get looking at it.
Be great. Thanks. If you would, Mayor, when you get going, I'd like to be included. Because like I said, the UDOT is for half of the projects we want to do on, Parks, Open Space, Trails. There's some UDOT component.
No problem.
Okay.
Well, anything we
Okay.
could do to build a closer relationship with them, to be involved in the planning, I'd say would be a positive step forward anyway. Whatever you can do on that, Mayor.
Yeah, I mean, it generally tends to be their side, not our side, as far as
I know,
availability,
yeah.
but we'll keep working on them, because we keep asking. Unfortunately, they turn over their people in the roles at some level of frequency higher than we do. So we make inroads and then we start over, unfortunately. All right, Carol, anything new on the Transportation Committee side?
Not a lot. I'm still waiting. I have to monitor what goes on with Park City because they're responsible for the Richardson Flat bus. And it looks like they are going to continue it, not with the amount of frequency that they've been running it during ski season, but it looks like it will continue. And then in terms of High Valley Transit, they are working on their facility that they're building by Home Depot off Frontage Road. And eventually, once that gets built and they have a bus depot or whatever you want, it's not going to be a depot, it's going to be there where they're going to store their buses and things. They will probably have more routes. And again, we need to try to start working with them in terms of seeing if they will make a stop somewhere around Hideout. But again, as I mentioned before, we need to provide parking. But for right now, people in Hideout will be able to continue to ride the Richardson Flat Bus. But they haven't come out with their new schedule yet. And that's it.
Thank you, Carol. Carol, one thing to ask about, I know Park City Council had, I don't know if they finalized the passing of it, but they were talking about building a new park and ride down near the corner of 40. And I don't know how that's going to impact Richardson Flat or how that's going to impact bus schedules, but you know, that not much further than Richardson Flat, and might be, if that comes to fruition, might be something that the community would use if it had greater frequency of travel from that park and ride than from Richardson.
Right. But, you know, that's down the road. At least right now, Richardson Flat is available, so.
Yeah.
And as I get an updated schedule, then I'll let Carol know so she can get it into the newsletter.
Okay. But as far as that new one goes, any information around timing you can bring to us maybe sometime in another review.
Okay.
Another session would be helpful. I don't know if that's 5 years away or, you know, 18 months away.
Okay, I'll check that out.
Thank you. Anything else for Carol?
Nope.
Okay. Last and not least, Sherry.
Yes, hi. So we had a meeting this month and decided that we had been planning a bunch of events for the summer. And I have an amazing committee. They've been working really hard, but we decided to dial it back to just 2 scheduled events right now until we know for sure that we have a venue, because that's been the big issue. We have to see what happens when the snow melts and where we can do it. We're hopefully looking at the state park, but that will come hopefully next month. We'll have a little bit more information on that. We did try to do a snowshoe event at the end of March, but it just kept snowing and all of us just got really tired of winter. I want to thank Chris though for helping with planning that. I would have looked forward to having her lead the way. But next year for sure, because it just, by the time it stopped snowing, it was too warm and slushy to do it. So we'll definitely plan that, as well as a Hideout ski day next winter. So still working on some other events for the summer, but, and if anyone has any great ideas for a venue, let me know. That's about all I got.
Okay. Thank you. We do not have any content for an executive session this evening. So at this point, we are ready to consider adjourning the meeting. So for that to happen, I would need a motion from someone to suggest we adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ralph. Chris?
Yes.
Carol, sorry.
Yes.
Senior moment. Ralph
Yes.
and Sherry.
Yes.
Thank you, council. I lost the over under tonight. I told Alicia it would be 10 or 10:30 before we were done. So thanks for your efficiency.
Glad you
Appreciate it.
lost.
And
I am
all your
also glad
hard
you
work.
lost.
And we'll see you next month.
Bye. Good night.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Good night, everyone.